Don't come here, okay?
What happened, Dr. Surya? You're saying something?
No, no, I am on the way. I am talking with child.
Okay.
So I don't know, so I muted.
Okay. No problem. Okay. Okay. Let more people join. Once we reach 100, we'll start.
Yes.
Let others join in the meantime, and we'll start with our usual procedure of introduction and everything. Hazel,
Okay.
can you hear me? Okay. I'm going to give you a call on WhatsApp to talk to you about one thing. Okay. I'm muting myself here. Come on WhatsApp. Is there anyone speaking? Okay. It's 6 o'clock. We'll start just in a while. Just give us a few, then we'll start. Okay. We are waiting for a few more people to join. All group leaders and leaders, make your very best to reach out to everyone and make them wake up from their slumber so that they come and attend their meetings, which is anyway compulsory for them. Okay. So if they don't attend, they are not eligible for the certifications. So this is the fourth meeting, and we are anyway going to make big decisions this week. Our excellent eminent guest has already joined, and people are not even courteous enough to come and join the meeting, which is very, very disappointing. So we'll start without wasting any more time. Hazel, please display the image, and let's start. So are we recording now, Hazel? Okay. And are we live? Okay, great. Okay, great. Yeah. Yes. Sure. Please go ahead. Sure. Thank you, Faisal, for such a generous and brilliant introduction. It's wonderful to hear about our speaker as well as me. Okay, so I'll just start. Give me a second. Let me have to look at documents that I have to because it's all to be done on this laptop, which is a bit acting weird at the moment. So let me read it out a brilliant introduction, because if I do any impromptu introduction, I think it will be unjust on my part. So Professor Lucio Engelbert Ben is head of international program African Population and Health Research Center, APHRC, Nairobi, Kenya. Dr. Lucio Engelbert Ben is a physician, public health specialist, and bioethicist with over 15 years of experience at the intersection of research, ethics, and health system strengthening across Africa. Currently serving as the head of international program at the African Population and Health Research Center, APHRC, he leads strategic partnership and global engagement for one of Africa's premier research institutions. His work spans implementation research, AI and digital health governance, reproductive health, proactive science communication, and effective decolonization of global health knowledge systems. Dr. Bain is a seasoned mentor and thought leader committed to shaping the next generation of African researchers and global health leaders. He actively contributes to international research ethics bodies and has advised multilateral agencies such as WHO, IPPF, Africa CDC, and RBM. His approach to partnerships emphasizes equity, mutual learning, and African agency, often challenging dominant paradigms of knowledge production and funding. He is a dynamic speaker and advocate. Dr. Ben promotes inclusive, ethics-grounded approaches to global health collaboration. His work reflects a bold vision for transforming mentorship, partnerships, and knowledge systems to serve Africa's priorities. He is a public health and global health professional and a specialist in empirical research methods in bioethics with keen interest in sexual and reproductive health and rights, SRHR, climate change and health, One Health, antimicrobial resistance, global health security, HIV/AIDS, health system strengthening and resilience, and monitoring and evaluation of public health interventions. He is particularly interested
I think you are muted. You are muted.
me. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Could you hear me before? Okay, that's very strange because I have not done anything. Okay, I'll just go back and I'll read a few more things. Sorry, I'm very sorry for that. Dr. Wayne is a seasoned mentor and thought leader committed to nurturing the next generation of African researchers and global health leaders. He actively contributes to international research ethics bodies and has advised multilateral agencies such as WHO, IPPF, Africa CDC, and IBM. His approach to partnerships emphasizes equity, mutual learning, and approach to African agency, often challenging dominant paradigms of knowledge production and funding. A dynamic speaker and advocate, Dr. Ben promotes inclusive ethics-grounded approaches to global health collaboration. His work reflects a bold vision for transforming mentorship, partnerships, and knowledge systems to serve Africa's priorities. He's a public health, global health professional, and a specialist in empirical research methods in bioethics with keen interest in sexual and reproductive health and rights, SRHR, climate change and health, One Health, antimicrobial resistance, global health security, HIV/AIDS, health system strengthening and resilience, and monitoring and evaluation of public health intervention. He is particularly interested in core epistemological questions in global health, such as decolonization, equity, justice, funding, and health politics and global health diplomacy, just to name a few. He strongly believes that to decolonize global health effectively, we must continuously question knowledge, expertise, methods, power, and agenda. For whom, by whom, and with whom. With over 100 peer-reviewed scientific publication, he sits on the editorial board of major journals such as PLOS ONE, BMC Women's Health, Frontiers in Public Health, and PAMJ. He has recently served as a technical lead on priority setting in abortion research capacity building in sub-Saharan Africa, sponsored by Guttmacher Institute USA, a learning lead on a Bill and Melinda Gates funded project on primary healthcare and maternal mortality in rural Nigeria, Mamaye Evidence for Action Project. As a senior technical advisor on an international Planned Parenthood IPPF funded analysis for the organization's 2023 to 2028 vision, as lead consultant for the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, in evaluating the in Mali and his contribution to maternal mortality, associate consultant with the Alliance for Child Protection in humanitarian settings in updating the infectious disease outbreaks, that is IDOs, and child protection document UNICEF and Save the Children International, and mapping the epidemiology of and effectiveness of interventions with malaria, TB, and HIV in the DRC. It is funded by UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, and the evaluation of the Group of Antenatal Care Project, GANC, in Nigeria, funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He recently worked on a WHO TDR funded grant on best practices in community engagement in research in sub-Saharan Africa, a Social Science Research Council SSRC USA funded project on COVID-19 mis and disinformation and vaccine uptake in Ghana. Doctor's notes as lead technical consultant for a USD $21 million USAID grant to strengthen the One Health and global health security architecture in Vietnam. Means I can go on and on in terms of introducing Dr. Ben, and I would still not be over. Means his work and the nature of the work is such. But I must end the introduction right now because he has so much wisdom to offer to all of our participants. So I'm very sure the participants are all geared up to listen to him, and they are slowly coming up and joining the meeting because today is a Sunday evening. Everyone is enjoying their evening time. Hopefully more and more people will join. Seats still empty, so let them come and join. And in the meantime, I would invite Professor Lucio to come and please offer his words of wisdom. I am assuming that he has a presentation to make. So if you are ready, Professor, then the floor is all yours, and please enlighten us. Thank you. I look forward to hearing yours. Hazel, please allow him access so that he can share his screen and
Okay, no, thanks so much for the generous introduction. I don't know whether you can see my screen.
yes, I can see it. All right, please start.
Can you hear me properly? If it means that I put off my video, that's fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you all right. Please continue. If you feel comfortable, you can also turn off your camera. Otherwise, you can stay on camera. Not an issue.
Okay, no. Thanks so much for the invitation and the very generous introduction. I think I will just get into the core of the matter. I was invited to speak on population health research and international collaboration strategies, putting Africa in the center of all health policies. But I think I decided to take another trip because it's important for us to actually contextualize the discussion. We all know what is happening within the international development space. We know what's happening with significant cuts in funding, not only for global health, but for international health globally. So for me, my discussion is going to take two directions. One, integrate the reality that when it comes to the challenges that we are facing now in global health, and two, the discussion is actually focused I'll be talking mainly through a decolonization of global health lens. Because if low and middle income countries or if the global south has to speak, you can't speak, we can't be seen if we don't look at things through the decolonization of global health lens. So as Prof. Maheswar mentioned, I work for the African Population and Health Research Center, APHRC, which is an African premier research policy institution aimed at generating evidence, strengthening research and related capacities in Africa, and actually developing, transforming evidence to policy. We have presence in over 35 African countries with over 160 projects. The center is African-based and African-led. For the moment, woman-led. Our CEO is a lady, with its headquarters in Nairobi, and we have a West African regional office in Dakar, Senegal. APHRC seeks to drive change by developing a strong African research leadership and promoting evidence-informed decision-making across sub-Saharan Africa. 3 main activities that we undertake at the level of the center. 1, we undertake research, we build capacity, that's research and related capacity strengthening, and we are intentional in building individual capacities, institutional capacities, and also strengthening the research and development ecosystem within the continent. And we have a policy engagement and communications unit. It's really important for the evidence that is generated to be taken up by policymakers. That's why the organization was intentional to invest in a policy engagement and communications unit, because just providing the evidence is not sufficient, but the evidence being taken up by policymakers is really what is important. And as mentioned, I serve as head of international programs with 2 main assignments. The first, to come up with a strategic with a partnerships model for the organization and an internationalization strategy. As I mentioned, my discussion is going to consider or integrate the decolonization of global health lens. And I'm intentional in beginning with these quotes, a couple of quotes, and you're going to see exactly why I bring these quotes at this particular point in time as we move towards the end of the discussion. 1, Seya Abimbola says decolonizing global health is not about replacing one hegemonic system with another, but dismantling systems that perpetuate inequities and building ones that promote justice. Pai says global health remains dominated by the global north, and until we tackle power imbalances, global health will continue to perpetuate the very inequities it seeks to address. Audre says the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. That's where the notion of intentionality and courage actually come in if we really want to effectively decolonize global health. Paul Farmer, who is like the father of equity within global public health, said the idea that some lives matter less is the root of all that is wrong with the world. And Patricia Garcia says, come in and ask us what we think is important and create capacity. That's where we have dimensions of integration and consideration of and upholding of local indigenous knowledge and wisdom as non-negotiables if we intend to effectively decolonize global health. It is clear that we really don't have a consensus of what public health is or what global health is. But one of the most cited and respected authoritative definitions of global health was given by Copeland and colleagues in the Lancet in 2009. And they defined global health as an area of study, research, and practice that places priority on improving health and achieving equity in health for all people worldwide. Global health emphasizes transnational health issues, determinants, and the solutions, involves many disciplines within and beyond health sciences, and promotes interdisciplinary collaboration. A systematic review, recent systematic review that was done by Melissa Sam and colleagues that actually seeks to do a kind of a synthesis on the definitions of global health, came up with a couple of findings, core principles that I think are really important before we jump into this discussion. It is a multiplex approach. Global health is ethically oriented initiative that is guided by justice principles. Global health is a mode of
Lucio, your
yes.
slides are. Have you moved them? No.
My slides are not moving?
Have you moved your slides? No.
Yes.
Faisal, are they moving for you?
Okay. Let me stop sharing and start again.
Yeah, they're on the first slide only. Yeah, the title side.
God. That's sad.
It happens, not an issue. We face those issues. We are all based in LMICs, you know. We are very accustomed to facing such issues on a daily basis.
Can you see my slide? Which slide are you seeing, please?
Now, what is global health implications for Africa?
Okay,
Slide
let me
number
do
6.
this. Let me change. Did it change?
No, not yet. Yeah, why decolonize global health? 7.
Okay, now then I'm moving. Let me go back to 6. Okay, then it's working. So as I was saying, Melissa Salm and colleagues actually did a very, I see there is somebody who is raising a hand. I don't know.
No, please continue.
Okay. Melissa Salm and colleagues came up with a very robust definition, did a systematic review to synthesize the various definitions of global health. And a couple of things stood out. First, as I was mentioning, it's a multiplex approach, ethically oriented, guided by justice principles. It's a mode of governance that involves political decision making. And I am very intentional to highlight political and in red. And very important. Somebody is speaking.
Please, everyone be muted.
Okay. And very important point that was made was that global health is a vague and yet versatile concept with multiple meanings, historical antecedents, and an emergent future. In the midst of all of this, is the slide that you are seeing, is it why decolonize global health? Just double checking.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. In the midst of all this, considering integrating the fact that we don't have any consensus on the definition of global health, but there are quite a couple of areas where we have some consensus. There are areas of consensus, and that is a fact. It's clear that justice is at the center of global health. Solidarity, there is agreement that there should be some solidarity when we are talking about global health. There should be justice when we're talking about global health. There should be humanity when we're talking about global health, and ethics when we're talking about global health. But we have a very recent past behind us. If you look at what happened with Ebola, what happened with HIV, the most recent COVID-19 and Mpox, and you think of when low and middle income countries actually had access to vaccines and all that, you see that we can question all of these dimensions when it comes to global health. Theoretically, this is what global health should actually entail, but practically, as a global community, we are not doing very well when it comes to equity. We are not doing very well when it comes to solidarity. And even if you look at from an ethics perspective, there is a lot of helicopter research that's actually going on and is still going on. You also have a lot of helicopter ethics approvals where you have a research that is being carried out maybe in Sri Lanka, and the main ethics approval is gotten from the University of Ottawa, and they come and they do the research and they live like that. So these are principles, but we still have a lot of work to actually translate these core principles into action. Who is who in global health? This is really very, very important when we look at global health leadership. The data is very clear on the fact that 2/3 of global health agencies are headquartered in 3 countries: Switzerland, UK, and the US. More than 80% of CEOs and board chairs of global health organizations, I'm talking about WHO, major global health organizations, are nationals from high-income countries. Leadership across the global health sector is mainly in the hands of older men from high and middle, or from high-income countries. The gender dimension is something we really cannot ignore when it comes to leadership within the global health space, and that's really important. A typical CEO of a global health agency is 3 times more likely to be male, 4 times more likely to be from a high-income country, and 13 times more likely to have been educated in a high-income country. This is data from the 2020 Global Health 50/50 report. I think this is something that is really concerning. And as emerging global health leaders and practitioners of global health, is an area of concern, and it's going to require intentionality, courage, and proactiveness to actually change or challenge this narrative. It's important to decolonize global health. That is a fact. But something that we must also realize is the fact that it risks also becoming a very buzzword. For instance, we think of cooptation by power structures, elite capture. If you look at the main scholars, the main leaders that are within the decolonization of global health discussion, for instance, two things will stand out. One, they are from high-income countries, and two, they might be from low-income countries, but they are based in high-income country institutions. I don't think that's something that we need to take for granted, because as a question, and as you're going to see at the end, public health, health policy, global health, these are completely useless concepts if you don't integrate the political dimensions, the diplomatic dimensions into the story. And if you are thinking politics and you are thinking diplomacy, you are thinking country interests, it means you must always question agenda. So if we are already having an elite capture from a scholarly and epistemic side of things, of the decolonization of global health discussion, it makes basic sense for us to question whether is change, are we really going to get the change that we really want within this particular framing? It's clear when you look at the superficial representation of low and middle income countries, there are lots of questions. There is avenues for us to have concerns. It's clear the funding still draws from the global north to the global south. It's clear, as we are going to see also, cooptation of language. The global health space, like every other space, is dominated by the English language. And there is a lot of writing that is actually has been done when it comes to, mainly studied by anthropologists, what they actually call the anthropology of language, because there is a concept of embodiment when it comes to language. There are certain things you can only understand or can only translate or think through when you get them from your own language. But if we are in the current of decolonizing global health, but everything is English language dominated, and we are not even seeing any kind of intentionality, one, to change the trend, or two, to integrate the dimension of language within the discussion. I think there we are certainly getting something wrong. Okay. Daniel Krugman is an anthropologist. Brown University has written a lot when it comes to the elite capture of decolonization of global health. And he says in one of his papers in PLOS Global Health that the diluting of decolonization into a depoliticized vision of reforming the inherently colonial and capitalistic institutions and organizations of global health is an example of elite capture, the co-opting and reconfiguration of radical liberatory theories and concepts, then used by elites for their own gain. So we need to be cautious. And I think within this particular jurisdiction or the space or the challenges that we're actually having, the most important thing is not to get the right answers, but to ask the right questions. We need to be asking the right questions, not superficial questions, but very deep questions. I think I've already mentioned around why the implications of the dominance of the English language, issues around power representation, access and equity to publications, preservation of indigenous knowledge. It means if you have knowledge which is not in English language, it's certainly not going to ever be considered knowledge because it's not in English. And you can have very weak knowledge which is in English, which is going to be considered knowledge because that's what people are exposed to. And for those who come from communication, people at some point are going to only consume the information that they have. So I think language is a component that must be considered integrated, not only within the global health discussion, but anything when it comes to scholarship in the health spheres or generally, is something that is really very, very important. Now, who is a global health expert? Because, and that is where, when it comes to scholarship, where we might be getting something wrong. Because everybody is a global health expert and everybody is not a global health expert. And it's important because we cannot really attempt to decolonize what we don't know. Who qualifies as an expert in the first place? And who is not an expert? And why is this important? It's really important because at some point I stopped attaching to myself that I'm a global health expert because it's really concerning because everybody is a global health leader. Everybody is a global health expert. So at the end, who is an expert? Who is not an expert? And who confers this title of expert or expertise within the particular space? But it's important. We have to consider the fact when you look at the interactions, the interconnectedness, for instance, you look at what is happening, the impact of climate change on health, everything is connected. You really cannot solve a particular problem without taking this multi-dimensional perspective. We can agree on the fact that a global health expertise in global health is complex, multi-dimensional, and context dependent. This is really important because if you cannot be solving a problem you don't know. So the solutions, the research prioritization should be bottom up and not top bottom. But how many global health organizations, for instance, integrate all of this? I remember working for an organization and having to work with then a consultant on the topic. She had just graduated from Karolinski Institute 3 months then, and she was hired by the organization, I'm not afraid to say it, UNFPA, as a consultant on the subject she had no idea on. But that is a consultant. That is somebody hired by a respected global health institution who has 3 months of experience after public health to serve as a consultant on a serious health issue in the global south. These things are still happening, and we cannot continue to let this thing continue to happen that way. It can no longer be business as usual. But it's important for us to know that these are things that are still happening, and we have the scholarly, intellectual, and moral obligation to challenge this status quo. We might not know who is a global health expert, but we know who is not a global health expert. At least you will recognize and know that this one is not a global health expert. One-dimensional expertise you cannot be talking about. You are the global health expert. Superficiality, you just know things at the level of the surface. If you come in with a severe complex advocate like you are from this country, you are coming in, you know everything, you are not a global health expert. And if you don't appreciate one and understand context in everything and in your thought process, you are not a global health expert, at least for those we know. What will it take to effectively decolonize global health? Redistribution of power and resources, revising curricular and narrative, and promoting, which is a core of this discussion, equitable partnerships. But what is an equitable partnership? I think that's a fundamental question. How do you form equitable partnerships? How do you monitor equitable partnerships? Because the most important thing is not only to get into a partnership, it's more important to monitor the partnership, to know exactly whether the partnership is equitable or not. Because at times it's better not to get into a partnership, or rather than getting into an inequitable partnership. That is one. But what are the dimensions of equity? We have trust, we have collaboration, we have clear communications, we have clear distribution of roles and responsibilities. You have a clear description of monitoring and evaluation with clear landmarks. All of those things are supposed to be shared, clear, shared power structures, respect. Those are things that we know that are supposed to be in an equitable partnership. But I think when you look at the global health space, and as I mentioned, which is politically grounded, diplomatically grounded, if you only look at those buzzwords, which are really nice, we are missing something else. You need to dig deep into the political and the diplomatic dimensions of partnerships. And if you are thinking of the political and diplomatic dimensions of partnership, that's why you always have to question power. Sit back and ask, how are the power dynamics within this particular relationship? Sit back and ask, what is the agenda behind this particular partnership? Sit back and ask, question expertise, who is really the expert that is going to be driving this particular piece of work or this particular area of work within this particular partnership. Question knowledge. Who is who within this particular partnership? And question the methodology. It's not because the proposal or the inception was done in a high-income country that the methodology is robust. There are, I know some of you are doing very complex research. There are questions, research questions that can be answered by, that are appropriately answered by capped surveys than doing unnecessary modeling. So complexity does not mean it makes sense. So it's important to question methods. The source does not confer the appropriateness or the robustness of the methodology. So questioning method is really important. Complexity is not equal to appropriateness in answering research questions. So it's important always to question methodology. Okay. So, and if we want to effectively decolonize global health, we need to foster actionable frameworks that are rooted in local realities, move behind binaries to embrace intersectional and hybrid approaches, incorporate, this is really a priority, community-led participatory methods, and find voices from the global south in research and policy, which is exactly what we are doing with this particular platform, and promotes epistemological plurality by including indigenous knowledge systems and multilingual processes. If your grandfather, where I come from, my grandmother, when I had issues with my stomach or when I had a wound, there were particular plants that she would take and apply, and I will heal. That is knowledge. Why should somebody call that indigenous knowledge in the first place? Why should somebody call that indigenous wisdom? People have been using those things, and those things have been working. Those are solutions. I have a personal issue even with the use of indigenous. Why indigenous? Because if we use indigenous, it already places a kind of gradation or classification of knowledge. But those are things that worked. For instance, if you look at the impact of climate change on health, the climate change did not start to impact health 5 years ago. It has been impacting health for the past 50 and 100 years. Communities have been impacted by climate change and health. Communities have survived the impact of climate change and health. It means communities have learned. Communities have built resilience. Communities have developed methodologies to survive the impact of climate change and health. Why not go to them to teach you? Because they have lived those experiences. They have survived those experiences. It means at least they got something right already Why don't just go and get what they get right already and maybe just kind of package better rather than coming to tell them that the climate change is impacted. They are not dead, they are alive. And they have been impacted by climate change for their entire lives. So indigenous wisdom or community wisdom is not a negotiable, is central in research priority setting, in research agenda setting, in intervention setting, monitoring and evaluation. It is not at the periphery. It simply makes common sense that these things should be at the center of the discussion. Joan Siboney wrote a very nice, gave 4 ways on effective decolonization of global health. Don't accept the status quo. And as students, it's very important. We need to change our teaching as mentors. We need to build up local power and find out if you are a colonizer or a decolonizer. In my experience, I don't know how also Maheswar your experience. Most of the most inequitable partnerships are South-South partnerships. They are not North-South partnerships. Charity begins at home. Let's question how we relate with one another. If we have robust, equitable South-South partnerships, we are stronger together to suffer from inequitable North-South partnerships. So the major problem is, one, recognizing and appreciating Southern expertise and coming up with equitable South-South partnerships. Charity begins at home. I'm going to share my slide. David McCoy, in the paper, in the Bulletin of the World Health Organization last year, actually wrote a very clear agenda, good paper on developing an agenda on decolonization of global health. And maybe I just highlight 3 things that were mentioned in that paper. When it comes to the 3 forms of colonialism, when it comes to global health, colonialism through global health, colonialism within global health, and the colonization of global health. The colonization of global health, now you think about issues around the elite capture of global health, as I mentioned earlier. And I would say that decolonizing global health means dismantling inequitable systems, amplifying marginalized voices, rethinking power, knowledge, language, and partnerships, and embracing continuous reflection to foster justice, inclusion, and equitable collaboration for lasting transformation. I think in my view, there are, in this particular discussion of showcasing Southern experience, expertise, decolonization of global, I find a lot of limitations when it comes to global health scholarship. One, as I said, everybody is a global health expert, and we don't know who does what. That's 2. The second thing is superficial theoretical engagement. There are really no robust theoretical frameworks that guide this particular discussion. And in the literature, if you have, there are 2 main schools or 2 main robust papers that have written on how to effectively decolonize global health. And I can tell you that one of those publications were actually written by the University of Washington. The South wants decolonization of global health, and the path to decolonize global health is written by a Global North institution. I find that really funny. So the discussion is biomedically dominant, and I think there is a clear question here for me. If we're talking about decolonization of global health, it simply makes sense. This is a historical concept. It has negotiation dimensions that I don't know in your reading whether you have found any prominent historian of science or historian of medicine that is actually involved in the decolonization of global health discussion. I know of one prominent political scientist and diplomat that is working within the space, but mainly within the global health diplomacy space, But you see that we are talking about a historical concept, a concept that has to do with politics, a concept that has to do with diplomacy. But the politicians and the diplomats are on the sidelines of the discussion. We are not historians, we are not political scientists, and we are not diplomats. It means we are doing another person's job. So the non-inclusivity can be seen at two levels. One, I call it the intellectual arrogance of those leading the decolonization of global health discussion by not being proactive in including subject matter experts in history, politics, and diplomacy to guide a more robust scholarship within this discussion. And two, simply ignorance or intentional or non-intentional barriers to include persons from the social sciences, history, politics, diplomacy into this discussion, so that this framing or scholarship in this area should be structured and more robust and more theoretically grounded. Scholarship within global health space, I call it, is emotional and knee-jerk. It's kind of either emotional or what I call knee-jerk scholarship. We will wait, COVID will come, everybody is going to talk about the colonization of global health, then we sleep. Then Trump is going to cut funding, everybody is going to talk about the colonization of global health, then we sleep. So what are we waiting for next so that we should talk more about the colonization of global health? So scholarship within the global health space is emotional or knee-jerk scholarship. In terms of future directions, we need a critical mass of courageous global South scholars who understand the challenges. We need interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, which is inclusive, bringing people from the social sciences. And I think this is really important for you, Prof. So you're working in climate and health, you understand. Everybody says we need people from various disciplines to work together. But that is not the fundamental question. It's not because you bring people into the room who are experts in their own right that they are going to work together. The fundamental question is, how can people, what are the best practices when it comes to making people to work together? Bringing people together is the simple question, is the basic thing that can be done. But the fundamental question is best practices in inter and transdisciplinary scholarship. We are not doing a very good job when it comes to that. And I think I already mentioned the importance of politics, international relations, bringing all of these things, because Ken Gasson, former director of PEPFAR, once said, if to bring change, you need good science and good politics. That is really very, very important. So the political dimensions of health, or health politics, or the politics of health, or the diplomacy of health for emerging global health South scholars is mandatory. It's a must, and it's a non-negotiable. So I think I've already mentioned this, but let's come back to what is happening. As I mentioned, we don't only have to form partnerships. We need to monitor these partnerships. And listeners and colleagues have actually come up with an equity tool that offers a practical guide when it comes to monitoring partnerships. And they talk around governance and processes, progress and impacts, procedures and operations, and power and inclusion. Okay. I'm going to share this, so don't. So what is the future? I think intellectual humility and inclusive epistemic recognition are certainly big wins for global public health. Expertise in global health transcends degrees and technical skills and requires contextual understanding, intellectual humility, and cultural competence. We need to rethink the training of global health students in the global South, because we have to fight that inferiority complex or establish saviorism models that are there. And we have to value co-learning and parallel learning. In the paper I wrote in BMJ Global Health on decolonizing global health mentorship, mentorship models or collaboration models must integrate from the very start that we are in the process of parallel learning where everybody has something to contribute. Actionable respect, actionable epistemic respect in these. But it's really important for students to fight this inferiority complex. As I go to the close of my discussion, let me recenter why Africa has a big role when it comes to the global health discussion. I think I already mentioned Africa is, as other global south continents, are excluded from the major global health discussions. We know that 80% of leaders are from high-income countries. Africa is too often treated as a site of problems and not leadership or solutions. And it's important for us to shift from working for to working with Africa in shaping health policy. There is a lot of health innovation that is going on in Africa that is not recognized. Let's just look at what happened during COVID-19. The predictions, all of the models, it was like Africa had to be wiped out. But something happened. That doom never arrived. But because of, I wrote a paper on research hypocrisy, because of hypocrisy, nobody has taken enough time to understand why those predictions failed. It means Africa got something right. Why can't we study to know exactly what Africa got right, not to suffer from the COVID-19 pandemic as predicted? Important method, question methods. Those methods did not take into consideration the cultural competence of the continent, the strength when it comes to traditional medicine within the continent, the role of community in pandemic response within those cultural context relevant realities were not included into those their models. But nobody has taken enough time to know exactly why Africa survived and to learn from that too. Recently in November, December, there was a Marburg outbreak in Rwanda, which was controlled in record time. So when it comes to epidemiological surveillance, best practices in community engagement and public trust in science locally, Rwanda was an example, but nobody is really going to talk much about that. The recent outbreak of the Sudan Ebola virus in Uganda that just ended, it was contained, I think, in 12, 14 days. Nobody talks about that. There is great work with limited resources that is actually being done by Africa CDC in actually containing Mpox in the GRC. So there is a lot of health innovation that is done in Africa that has to be documented and can actually be best practices to other regions of the world. That intellectual recognition is not actually appreciated as it should. Africa is home to 17% of the world's population and is the fastest growing youth population. So the world has to deal with Africa. Diverse health systems and disease burdens. This is really very valuable when it comes to lessons, when it comes to thinking innovation and contextualizing learning. African-led institutions like Africa CDC, AFI, AFIDEM are driving cutting-edge research and contextually relevant research. If you look at the stories in HIV, COVID-19 response, and maternal health innovations, there is a lot of innovation that is actually going on in Africa as we speak. Nigeria alone has one of the highest maternal mortality rates. But now, if you look at the health innovations in Nigeria, the use of drones in transporting blood, evidence-based practices, innovation, digital technology, in ultrasound, AI, in collaborating between clinical frontline health workers and experts in diagnosing and risk factors, most importantly, and around hemorrhage in Nigeria. There is a lot that is actually going on around those areas, just Nigeria, for instance. But in other regions of Africa, there is a lot of work that is actually going on. But the problem is the avenues, the structures, the journals, the news outlets, they capitalize on showcasing other stuff rather than showcasing the innovation that's actually going on at the continent. But there are two things at this level. We have responsibility as Africans to showcase what we are doing as our own. And that's why we came up with platforms like we have Global Health Otherwise and very soon Global Health Otherwise Media, where we are going to dedicate to showcase African innovation, African expertise, things that are actually going on in Africa, because somebody is not going to come and do that for us. We need to decolonize our collaboration. And I think I've already mentioned this. We'll think around equitable funding and authorship. Think why it's important that local knowledge should be considered legitimate science. Local knowledge, I hate the word indigenous knowledge. Local knowledge or indigenous knowledge is also legitimate science. That is important, and we need to be very pushful around that. The Ubuntu, when it comes to partnership, I am, because we have solidarity and not saviorism, and build institutional and ecosystem capacity. Because if the ecosystem, the research and development ecosystem is not friendly, you can have people with very strong, high technical expertise, but they are still going to relocate to high income countries if those environments are not friendly to allow them to work. So I think I will just end with this slide. As I mentioned, and this is my watchwords: to decolonize global health effectively, we must continuously question knowledge, expertise, methods, power, agenda. For whom, by whom, and with whom. Thanks again for the invitation, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lucio. What a wonderful presentation. There's so much of insight, and everything that I have been really looking forward to listen to for months now, since this whole idea of talking about and discussing now panelists begin, and finally it has come to fruition today. I'm immensely grateful for all the wisdom that you had to offer. I'm sure the young participants who are listening to you right now would have been left with nothing sort of inspiration and just sheer awe at what sort of ideas you have literally thrown at them, because many of them are not even aware of many concepts what we just talked about. So they are based in different countries. They do think in similar terms, but they are not aware of what decolonization is. So we'll quickly go into our panel discussion mode now, because we do not have a lot of time. Panelists will join us shortly. So it's very, very important for me to actually begin the panel discussion. And you have actually made my job extremely easy. Means literally you have covered a lot of components that I was about to go to ask you, So before I start the panel discussion, may I ask Faisal and you to confirm me whether you are able to see me and hear me all right?
So,
okay, please, nobody else speaks other than Faisal. Please mute everyone. Okay. So Dr. Lucio, please stay on camera. Now we are going to ask you a few questions, and it will be like a quick fire of questions. So please be graceful enough to respond to our questions. So Africa is huge, as you clearly said. It's materially and otherwise resource rich, although conventionally considered poor by global standards, by the global north. Do you see such efforts as deliberate to demoralize the people of Africa and Africa as a continent? And how do you view Africa's role in shaping global health policies through population health research in 2025 and beyond?
Well, thanks so much to that very complicated question, but I think I have a couple of views when it comes to that. And I can articulate my answer in 5 points. The first is, in the continent, we do a lot of talking. Agenda 2063, Abuja Declaration 2001, which was said you have to put in 15% of the GDP into health. Algiers Declaration 2008, 2% of health budget to research. None of those things have been done. As a continent, I don't think we have issues with policies. We are actually suffering from a policy, they call it a policy paralysis, because we have a lot of policies. So the question is, we know all of the problems and we know all of the solutions. The problem actually comes in prioritization and action. And that's where leadership comes into play. That's one. Two, still from the accountability side of things, when it comes to citizen science, I think that we have not been doing a very good job, because citizens think that it's a favor for the government to build bridges, is a favor for the government to provide healthcare, it's a favor for the government to invest in universal health coverage. It is the responsibility of the government to do that. So citizens have to be informed to hold governments accountable. Three, I recently attended an evidence to development summit last week, and one of the panelists made a statement that what we are doing now is not thinking. We really don't think. We need to sit and really do deep thinking, because if we do deep thinking, we are going to question, as I mentioned, a lot of things. Question our engagements, question our partnerships, question agendas, question deep think to see what we can do, which is appropriately relevant, context relevant, that is sustainable for our people. Four, I think there is, in Africa, there is an increased recognition, but I think we are not capitalizing enough on one of the greatest assets of the continent, which is actually the youth. The level of unemployment is an issue. If you look at the quality of education, not many universities coming up, many medical schools coming up, the quality of education is dropping significantly, because the atmosphere is not attractive enough to keep the best talent. The best talent always goes back, generally, to high-income countries. So the research and development ecosystem is not friendly enough to keep the best talent, to train or to invest in the greatest asset of the continent, which is the youth. And I think the fifth thing is support. Youth simply need support. Create an environment to give them some support to be more entrepreneurial, to create an ecosystem where you can give them loans and all that, for them to actually showcase what they can do, because they have quite a lot of solutions, but they need that environment, that friendly environment to showcase what they can do. So I think I will think along those lines. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. In fact, actually, that is one of the crippling issues that many times we underestimate ourselves. Rightly, you put out that we have a policy paralysis. It's not just about Africa. In fact, I'll say this very same for India and South Asia, where we are located right now. So I'll go quickly to the next question. So how do we bring, because you did to present, your presentation was very heavy. So you did try to present a little bit about how to bring Africa to the center, but I would like to give you another opportunity, maybe to elaborate a bit more. How do we bring Africa to the center and focus all global health strategies and policy making? Because many a times, most of what is done in the space of global health strategy and policy making is completely governed and regulated heavily by the global north. So how do we reorient that?
Thanks for that question. I think the narrative is actually changing gradually. And if we look at organizations like WHO, there is quite some autonomy now with WHO Afro to drive the agendas at the level of the continent. But I think what is most innovative is the creation of Africa CDC by the African Union.
Right.
Africa CDC is one of the greatest innovations when it comes to health that is changing the health and population health landscape within Africa. Although it still has its own challenges, it is still highly underfunded, and even African states still have issues with appreciating and accepting the leadership of Africa CDC as a driver of the African health and population agenda.
Right.
So I see more of opportunity within this particular space, and the creation of Africa CDC is a very huge opportunity. Yes, I understand that they can question the leadership or accountability or whatsoever, the way Africa CDC functions. But I think it is critical to fund the Africa CDC and hold them accountable. Thank you.
Definitely. Hopefully something will work out. And in fact, when I talk about, or when I look at Africa CDC as an institution, I look at it not just as another bureaucratic organization. I look at it as a visionary organization or institution. Why? Because no such institution exists in the entire world, at a continent level. No continental organization exists which is purely governed by their own people again, and which is taking care of the health and talking about health and well-being of their own population. I think what they are doing is phenomenal, but yes, there, as you rightly said, there are always limitations, and we can always hope and look forward to only improving it gradually. So I go quickly to the third question, and that is a little bit more Africa again. So how are the African values like Africanism and Ubuntu essential to offer light and wisdom to the entire global South? How do you see the scoping and relevance of that, those two values? You can also build on other value sets if you think they are relevant for the entire world, and especially for the global South.
No, thanks so much. I think it's really an opportunity, and I think in my presentation I alluded to inequitable South-South partnerships, which I think is something that we are really missing out on. We don't trust our own, and we don't collaborate amongst ourselves.
Correct.
The Ubuntu spirit, Africa is a very diverse continent.
Definitely. Definitely.
So having healthy South-South partnership is not only going to translate into knowledge exchange, build. If you look at countries like why can we not have, from a political and diplomatic dimension, the global North benefits a lot from the division of Africa. For instance, it's why if it's easier for a French citizen to travel to South Africa compared to a Chadian citizen to travel to South Africa, for instance. This might sound simplistic, but these are core issues, because it's not only if people cannot have visas, cannot circulate, how can they collaborate?
Right.
If I have a center of excellence, maybe in Stellenbosch University, and the student needs to spend 2-3 months there for internship, and to get a visa to South Africa takes 5-6 months, a student visa.
That is actually very unfortunate.
The impact on the large scale is really huge. If you have a conference in South Africa and it takes, I don't know, the number of months to get a visa to go and attend the conference, and you live in Ghana.
Yep.
So I think there are quite this, and I think what I mentioned was we need to think out of the box. Most of the issues that are constricting the health and development space in Africa are not found within health. They are found in politics, and they are found in diplomacy. Right. If we don't solve those supra-political and diplomatic, break down those barriers, we are going to continue to function in isolation. And the more divided we are, the weaker we are. But the more collaborative we are, together, if we are together, the stronger the stronger we are. Yeah.
Definitely. I completely agree on that. United we stand, divided we fall. That's a very famous saying. We have been reading that, studying that, but many times we forget that and we never practice it. That's the reality. So let me go quickly because I have 10 questions and I have only completed 3 so far. So I go to the 4th question. And what are your thoughts on decolonization? You have already talked about it, but I'll not go there because you have touched on that to a great extent. But what I'll ask now is something which is related, and probably you are the best person to talk about it. How do we make a self-reliant and self-sufficient global health possible in the era of inclement global and international aid politics?
No, thanks so much. I think we can generate a lot of funding locally. It simply means it simply requires us to rethink. Like 2 weeks ago at the Evidence for Development Summit, we had a lady from Tunisia. What Tunisia has done is part of the taxes on fuel goes to a research fund. And I think it's 0.18, 0.2%. And they generate billions and billions in research funding. In your international global health experience, how many Tunisian nationals have you seen studying in or looking for funding out of Tunisia?
Yeah.
Let's look at Morocco. Let's look at Algeria. Those things are working. Look at South Africa. South Africa is also doing a very good job in funding research.
Right.
So those are models, those are things that are actually doable. The second thing is how we look at research, how we present research to the policymakers. Can we appropriately sell research as a driver for development to policymakers? If you can do that and policymakers can see, we are going to look at Israel funds research and innovation. I think 4% of their GDP to research and innovation. Why can't we do that? So it depends on how we frame and how we prioritize. And the third thing still within that is within the scholarly spaces, the concept of research commercialization. How do we commercialize the outputs that we have at the level of the university? If you render the university commercially attractive, we are going to reverse the trend where most very good academics are running away from academia. Thank you.
Definitely. I agree with that completely. So I go to the 5th question. What are the most successful models of international collaboration that APHRC and Global Health otherwise have implemented? And speak us and enlighten us about the successful cases, because I know you have a lot to say about it. Yeah.
I think the first thing is we do some kind of introspection and we kind of identify our weaknesses. So we are intentional to monitor our partnership. So when we partner with other organizations, at the end, we always try to question, evaluate the partnership. Maybe we send a lot of surveys to our funders and to our grantees and to our implementing partners to actually know exactly how we did. And I have to be honest, in some instances, we have gotten some very negative feedback when it comes to power dynamics. And as an organization, we are intentional in fixing the feedback. So we are curious and intentional to monitor the quality of our partnerships so that we don't suffer from power imbalance from the top, but we don't also crush other smaller organizations. That's one. Two, in our strategic plan 2022-2026, I think we had quite some foresight to understand the fact that the challenges, not only within research and development, as an organization, we cannot solve all of these problems. So collaboration and partnership is in the backbone of our strategy. And we generally say our new form of competition is collaboration. So I think those are the two things that we are working on, and we actually ingrain the decolonization of global health agenda so that it shouldn't just be a buzzword, to actually make it really practical. Thank you. And at APHRS, maybe I just mentioned that we have quite a very robust package of work that has been going on for the past 2 years on decolonization of global health, trying to package what we have been doing for the past 20 years, the major variables, facilitating factors that have actually influenced evidence to policy through a decolonization of global health lens. And we're going to get that data out very soon. Thank you.
Correct, correct. In fact, the same goal with which the Global Consortium of Global Health activists, leaders, and thinkers, the global ALT, that our motto is, we are the global alternative. So if there is a global north which talks about global health being, they talk about decolonization, but they like to hold the power in their hands. We are now posing that we are the global consortium of global health, and we are based in the global south, led by global south, and going to lead it. So that is the motto. That's the tagline. Whatever you want to use in marketing language, we are the global alternative. So therefore, we would like to partner and work with APHRC in the coming days, and we are very much happy and proud and looking forward to such opportunities to connect, and so that we can engage more at a very reflexive level, at a very close level, so that we can do more things, better things together, being the global south organizations. So the next question is, what capacity gaps remain in LMICs when it comes to policy informing research, and how do we make it happen? Because as far as my understanding of policy informed research is concerned, many a times one of the limitations is very little capacity building exists, and not many people understand how to translate the whole loop of science, policy, and then practice, So to bridge the gaps and to make it a complete circle. So what's your views on that?
I have 3 ideas around that. The first is, and we are, as an institution, we are moving away from capacity building to capacity strengthening. It's not that we don't have capacity. There is capacity, but we can strengthen the capacity. And still from the capacity side of things is, we have a lot of capacity that we don't know. Yes. And that's one of the reasons of global health otherwise, where we want to showcase expertise that's found in Africa. There is capacity, but we don't know. There are very many experts that are found in universities that the universities don't have websites. How are you going to know these experts? You have experts that are not on ResearchGate and that are not on Google Scholar. How are you going to discover these experts? So it's not the absence. We need to have a broader thinking when it comes to capacity. That's one. I think I mentioned this as well, is we need to build individual capacity, institutional capacity, recognize the importance of systems and processes, and build capacity to render the research and development ecosystem friendly for people to work. You can come with the greatest expertise that you have, expert in machine learning. If you don't have the internet connection, if you don't have the laptops, how are you going to work?
Definitely.
If you don't have electricity, how are you going to work?
Correct.
So we need that kind of ecosystem, systems thinking, holistic view of things, knowing that things don't work actually just in isolation. So to me, I think those are critical views or ways of seeing the capacity thing within the space. Thank you.
Definitely. It goes beyond in the field of global health or public health. A lot of times people just talk about capacity building means just human resources and giving them some training. But I think without having the systemic and structural barriers removed, we are making no headways. You'll not believe that we have about 800 plus people participants, and more than 600 plus people are active. And we are having a daily tutor meetings. They have to discuss their research proposals with the tutors. There are eminent professionals and academics who are guiding them for their research work they are doing with us for the Global Advanced Certification Program. And many times people are unable to attend the meetings and they're genuine in their concerns because they do not have electricity at their place.
Yeah.
And
do you know
there
that
is
I
frequent
know
power outage.
professors in universities, I know university professors that pay for their internet services, buy computers for their divisions with their own money.
Yes, yes, I have done it myself. So I completely agree with that. You know, there was no internet and no electricity at my very university, which is my state's biggest university, and for 5 days. Can you believe this? For 5 days there was no electricity at my university. So I'm talking about this just 6 years ago, not like very far off from now. So the thing is, we are dealing with such things, and we are learning to grow our capacities and also becoming self-reliant. Maybe it will take time, but maybe we have to become more thick-skinned and more resilient to deal with such issues as well. You know, we are learning as we are growing and evolving. Okay, so the next question is, it's a bit complex. I hope you will do more justice to this question. I have said the most complex questions for you, Dr. Lucio, because you are the best person to answer them. So what are the core significant challenges to cooperation, coordination, co-creation, and coexistence in the 21st century? And how do we come to a meeting point of values, actions, and practice?
Well, thanks for the very complex question. But I think, and I still mentioned, and I think I mentioned this, it's about agenda. Why are we doing what we are doing? And what's the end goal? For whom? If we are working for, if the end goal is to make people healthier and economically vibrant, that's the communities. It means they know exactly what they want and they should be part and parcel of everything that we are doing. Part and parcel of the research commission, research prioritization processes. It should be effective co-creation. It should not just be you bring people into the room, you have a small discussion and you go. No, you have effective co-creation with clear accountability responsibilities where they are there, part of the system, part of everything. So effective co-creation. Best practices when it comes to community engagement. For instance, if you engage people poorly in a particular research, you are creating a very huge barrier for the future generation of researchers that are going to come to do research in that particular community, because the community is going to have a very bad memory of that particular action. That's really important. The third is still from the co-creation dimension. We shouldn't go to policymakers at the end. They should be part and parcel of the problem identification and agenda setting during the research, so that if they're part and parcel of all that from the very start, they're going to pick up the findings at the very end, because they're going to recognize the importance of what we are doing and identify in what we are doing. And maybe one of the last, but I think one of the most, which is to me one of the most important things, is as scientists, we are very good. We are doing great as experts in our own right, but we are very poor communicators.
Yes.
Science communication is key in anything that we are doing. People are not found in peer-reviewed journals. People are found on TikTok. People are found on LinkedIn. People are found on Facebook. People read online news and all that. How do we effectively package these messages to reach people in the palatable format where they are not in the Lancet, they are not in Nature? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the next question to you is, what lessons can emerging researchers in South Asia take from African models of health collaboration? Because you have been collaborating African centers of CDC and so much of APHRC yourself. So you're doing a lot of work across Africa. So what can South Asian researchers, young researchers who are listening to you, and other people from different parts of the world? What can they take away from you?
So I think the first thing is developing that culture of collaboration. It should be a culture of collaboration. It should not be an ad hoc process. You should be intentional in looking, intentional and proactive in building a network, in collaborating. You shouldn't wait. You should be proactive, looking for experts in your particular field on LinkedIn where you attend proactive, asking mentors, do you know people that are working? That is really important. So it's not an ad hoc activity, it's a culture of collaboration and of networking. The second, you should partner in dignity. Not all partnerships are worth it. If you realize that a partnership is inequitable, you should quit. But you can only realize that the partnership is inequitable if you ask the right questions, not the superficial questions, but the deeper questions, as I mentioned. So if you feel that a partnership is not worth it, you don't. So I think partnership in dignity is really very, very important, because that's where the trust is actually going to be, and that's where you can actually gain the most from those types of partnerships. And the third is, I don't think in terms of partnerships, the regional bodies or whatsoever should be a barrier. We do a lot of work with the Bangladesh Institute with BRAC, a lot of work with, I've collaborated on lots of projects with BRAC University, and also the region shouldn't be a barrier, because we are in a global space, and you'll be surprised that somebody in British Columbia spent maybe the first 15 years of his life maybe in New Delhi. You can never know. And the person in British Columbia maybe has very strong connections in New Delhi. So geography shouldn't be a barrier. So to me, I would summarize, I think they're really important. It's a culture of collaboration and networking that is really very, 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 very important. Partnering in dignity and geography not being a barrier. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay, the last question and the most important question. How do you think we, the Global South, need to build solidarity and coherence among each other, going beyond narrow concerns of geographical boundaries, as you just said, and political appeals of nationalism, so that a cross-functional and genuine South-to-South exchange and co-creation can be materialized without falling prey to any form of narrow pursuits and insecurities and primordial forms of remaining limited to our own intellectual arrogance. Because many times one of the limitations to collaboration in my experience is intellectual arrogance that many of us actually consciously or unconsciously harbor. So what would you say about it? What should we do?
No, thank you. I think you have already answered the question. But maybe I will start by saying the current geopolitical context makes collaboration and partnership no longer an option, but we have to partner by default. It's no longer whether you want to partner or you don't want to partner. You will partner, because the geopolitical context, the way the things are, we are bound to partner. The second still comes from culture and the way we think, looking at the bigger picture, not at don't look short term, you have to look at the bigger picture. And if you actually look at the bigger picture, as I mentioned, you're going to see that you always gain when you partner in the long term. So there is no point to compete. The only form of competition is collaboration. That's simply just what makes sense. And if you look at it from an economic side of things, even if you are looking at when you think of economies of scale, if you think around, it just makes sense to partner to get the largest number of fruitful partnerships that you have. because that's just what makes sense. No organization can solve all problems, and it's good to be in the good books when during your collaborations, so that if somebody comes up, if there is anything that comes up, the first person that comes to mind is you or your institution. So it's that mind shift of the fact that of the demerits of unhealthy collaboration. That's really important, to integrate the fact that the new form of collaboration, of competition, is collaboration, and you always make it big in the long term when you collaborate. To me, that's how I see it. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so I'm sure our participants have been left with a lot of insights and thoughts right now. They must be processing all this wisdom, because it's like a whole company of textbooks literally poured down just in 1.5 hours time, and I'm sure they are still thinking and processing. While they're still thinking and processing, we'll just open the floor for one question, okay, because you don't have a lot of time. Our eminent guest panelist, who is the next, is about to ask, come on board now, Professor Israel Agaku from UCSF USA. So before I introduce him to you, Dr. Lucio, because I told him over chat that you would love to meet him, and probably both of you should get to know each other. So I would like to give this opportunity to Emmanuel, who is based now in South Korea, and he is originally from Ghana. So he wants to ask this question to you. Yeah, please, Emmanuel. You can ask your question. Please allow him. Hazel? Yeah. Are you able to hear us? Please ask. Emmanuel, we can't hear you. Yes, now you're come. Okay, my boy is come. And so he's on camera. Okay, Emmanuel, no, you are on mute. We can't hear you. Yeah, speak now, please. Yeah. Try to speak up. No voice. Emmanuel is a brilliant student. He is now studying for his master's, advanced master's in global health security in South Korea. No, Emmanuel, we are not able to hear you. Why is this happening? Can you please take out that earphones and maybe speak? Let's see. Can you please take out that and try to speak up, Emmanuel? No, we can't hear you. We can't hear anything that you are speaking. Please just speak to the computer without the earphones. Take out the earphones, please. Yeah. Sometimes it happens. Yeah. Now speak. No, we are not able to hear. Dr. Luchu, can you still hear him?
No, I can't hear him.
Yeah, it is his device issue. Unfortunate. Emmanuel wants to speak, but we can see your video very well. But yeah, you can. Yeah, maybe rejoin. It can help. I don't know what's the issue, because I can see your video very well without any issues, but I can't hear you. Okay, no worries. Anyone else who wants to ask the question? We will give one more person an opportunity. Okay, no one wants to ask question?
I'm talking. Professor, can I have a question?
What's your name? Sorry.
I'm Munmun, Farzana Munmun from Bangladesh. Now I am also studying with Emmanuel in South Korea in same university, but my subject is different subject.
Okay.
I'm from control of infectious disease.
Okay.
So
please
thank you, Professor,
yeah, please be quick.
for the. Yes, a short question I am asking. Thanks for your good presentation, and I actually have many things to like noted, but word you mentioned, that policy paralysis, it's stuck me. Like, it's really, I feel in my country context also, there are many policy, but actually policies are paralyzed. So how can actually the like student like us or the public health professional like us, we can work in this issue so that we can actually make our policymaker more active on these issues?
Good. Thanks so much
Thank you.
thanks so much for that question and for picking out that. It's a problem everywhere. But I think the most important thing is, as I mentioned, how we package. In communications, they have what they call framing theory. The way we frame our messaging, that's really important. The timing of bringing in policymakers into the discussion. If policymakers are part of the process of generating the policies, they are not going to be external to the policies when the policies come up. So it's important to co-create agendas, these policies, with policymakers. And the third thing is, as I mentioned, one of the demerits, we wrote a paper on in PLOS Global Health, and the title of the disheartening paper, you can read that, is that the global public health curricula are no longer fit for purpose. Not fit for purpose because public health means nothing. Health policy means nothing. At the end, is a policymaker, is a politician who is going to take the decision. So you need to be cognizant of the importance of politics within the health policy making sphere. So be intentional as a student to start studying, even if it's not part of your curricula, the politics of health or health politics, the political dimensions of health. That is really very, very important. So I'll think through those lines. Don't be reductionist. As Kengasong mentioned, for you to bring change, you need good science and good politics to bring change. Thank you.
Okay, Swaliho wants to ask a question. Swaliho, you can ask. Please be quick.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone from my. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, but there is some noise coming from your side.
Yeah, so my question, first of all, I want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Victor. My question is, in terms of engaging citizens to be informed about global health issues, for us in Africa, because I'm from Sierra Leone, I'm currently residing in Sierra Leone as well. Citizens normally trust politicians in terms of information dissemination. Many times, our politicians are not, I would say, 100% or even 80% truthful in terms of giving out information, especially when it is during electioneering processes. So I want to know, in this particular concept, who are the individuals responsible in terms of engaging the citizens or informing the citizens about global health issues or issues centered around health for global health perception. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for that very difficult question. So what are my thoughts around that? The first thing is communication. Information to citizens should not be an ad hoc process. It should be a continuous process. It's a shared responsibility from, there are communication experts that are doing that, but the scientists, the researchers that are doing the work have a responsibility to communicate. And that's why now in most grants, you have specific funding chunks for dissemination and communication. That is very, very important. And two, it's important for citizens to trust their science, not the political regime. And that's why it's important to strengthen the capacity and render authoritative. Universities render authoritative the national academies of science so that when they speak, the citizens can trust them, to respect them, to say that no, this is coming from, this is the science that is coming from these authoritative bodies. Because the idea is we envision a world, or the world where politicians will trust universities or academics or researchers to guide them in setting their agendas. That's actually the end goal. But from a communication side of things, as I said, is it shouldn't be done on an ad hoc basis. It's a shared responsibility, and we need to strengthen the capacities of respected mouthpieces of science, like universities and national academies of science, so that when they speak, citizens can trust and respect. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now have to, unfortunately, everything has to end. There are so many people who are raising hands and sending messages, personal messages to ask questions, but we can't give everyone an opportunity because our next presenter, panelist, has already joined. It's very not a good manner to actually make them wait for a very long time. So we'll quickly start with our second panel. Unfortunately, you have to wait, Emmanuel. I'll make you connect with Professor Lucio later, okay? And so that you can, or maybe you can give me your question and I'll share with him and he can respond to you. Okay, so we have to now go quickly to Dr. Means next panelist. But before that, I hand over the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Lucio, for coming on my and speaking to all of us. I'm extremely inspired by the wisdom that you said, and I hope we tried our very best to do justice with our limited resources and logistics that we could. And I hope we'll talk more over WhatsApp and other mediums, and we'll connect and do more groundbreaking work in the years to come. So that's all from my side. I hand over the mic now to Faisal to do the dues. Thank you. $750. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Please come back as soon as possible. Yeah. Yeah. So please spotlight our next panelist, please. Dr. Israel, welcome. Sorry, I could not welcome you in between the panel, but I hope you heard Dr. Lucio. He was inspirational. So the kind of topics he was speaking and such issues, deep issues that he raised and he talked about, was wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed listening to them, and so I'm looking forward to the session of yours. Now. So just give me 1 minute. I'll just quickly go for the loo break, and I'll come back and then I'll welcome you properly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Faisal, is Dr. Lucho still here or he has left? I can't see. I think he has left. Yeah. Okay, I'll communicate to him later. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We took a lot of time. Actually, the panel was extremely long, but it was very, very good because it was so good that participants were messaging me on WhatsApp to like give us opportunity to ask questions. I'm like, that's not possible. Like, so many people want to ask questions. How is that possible to give everyone an equal opportunity? Even practically feasible. We have already exceeded like what 18 minutes left. Okay, now we'll start in just 2 minutes and so wonderful to listen to. Yeah, I hope our participants are enjoying listening to the eminent professors so far, and we'll just start in a minute. And in the meantime, you please complete anything that you're doing, because you are now going to listen to another powerful panel, extremely powerful panel from Professor Israel Agaku. From in yeah, I'll formally introduce. Faisal, have you figured out the attendance link thing? What to do about it? Okay. Have you talked to someone about it? That's not feasible right now. We are doing the meeting. Okay, we'll continue. We'll then we'll say we'll give everyone an attendance. Okay. Means we know. Otherwise, you can do one thing. Log on to this meeting in your phone. Okay. Yeah, it will allow you to take screenshot of the people that who have joined the meeting. Simple. Yes. Okay. No, not everyone is joining the YouTube. How can we do that? That's not how it is. Just join your meeting. This meeting. Just join on MS Teams phone. Okay. Yeah. Then you can take the screenshot of people who are attending. It's possible. I do that. Just the way we do on our Gmeet. You can look at the names later also. It stays. And we have to talk after the meeting. We have to talk about these serious issues, but that can wait now. We'll start now without waiting. Okay. So we'll start. Dr. Israel, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Hazel, please start. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Fraser. Okay, so it is my great honor to welcome and introduce Dr. Israel Agaku, CEO and founder, Chief Scientific Officer, Chi-Square Inc., Atlanta, USA. Dr. Israel Agaku is a board-certified adjunct clinical professor at the University of California, San Francisco. He served as a former disease detective in the CDC's Epidemic Intelligence Service and as a former associate director for science at the CDC's Office on Smoking and Health. Dr. Agaku holds 3 doctoral degrees, a Doctor of Dental Surgery, and 2 PhDs in scientific disciplines. Currently, he serves as the editor-in-chief at the Journal of Tobacco-Induced Diseases. Dr. Agaku was deployed to numerous countries to support public health emergency responses or provide technical guidance in developing large national surveys. He has authored over 160 manuscripts in peer-reviewed journals of repute and has served as an associate editor for the US Surgeon General's report, which is a very eminent and very important research report. If you are working in the area of public health or global health, you would know that. Dr. Agaku is also the founder, CEO, and Chief Scientific Officer at Chi-Square Inc., which we'll talk about during our panel discussions, a startup developing advanced scientific tools and doing really well-leading training for our young emerging researchers in LMICs. So that's all from my side. The floor is all yours for you, Dr. Agaku, to enlighten us with all the wisdom that you have to offer tonight. And I'm sure our young emerging researchers who are attending the meeting right now would greatly benefit from your wisdom and experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. All right, let me try and share my screen now. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm using 2 screens. One is full screen, the other one is half. Which one can you see? Can you see the full screen?
I can see 2 screens, next slide and the main slide.
Oh, okay. That is probably not what I want to show. Let's try again.
Yeah, this is better. Yeah, try the main slide. So
okay.
Yeah,
all right, let's try this. Same thing, right?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. I know this is a bit tricky. You know, I also find it difficult.
Okay, let's see. Alrighty, let's try one more time. Let me stop sharing and try again.
Yes, that
share. Am I winning now? How about now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Please.
Okay, awesome. All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for giving me this opportunity to present. So I'll be focusing today on issues of training, and practically so. What kind of skill sets, what kind of approaches do we need to help develop capacity in our respective communities so that we are prepared for not the jobs of yesterday, but the jobs of tomorrow? So that's what I'll be talking about. And so we've had a lot of changes and developments in science and technology and several aspects of life that we all collectively need to turn a new page in, not just our individual lives, but collectively as academic institutions or as cultures or communities in how we think, right? It starts with how do we think? So we all need to move on a new page in terms of our thought processes, because that's the minimum that we can do to prepare ourselves. And the first thing we need to do is that we need to acknowledge the fact that we don't need more thinkers. We have enough thinkers right now in the world. What we need to do is to create a culture that generates the thinker-doer. So the thinker-doer is the guy who can both think as well as do, right? And that's what we need now. So the whole focus of this talk is about how do we move away from the models where we train people to be thinkers. And people pride themselves on being thinkers. They're like, oh, I'm a thinker. I love dwelling on the big picture of things. No. In this age and time, we don't need any more thinkers. We need people who can think, but also do, right? And so people who can see the big picture, but also can get into the weeds. because seeing the big picture doesn't help us. We need people who can see the big picture, but also execute, because the devil is always in the details. That's why we say ideas are worth a dime a dozen. It's all about the execution. So it doesn't help us for individuals to be able to see the big picture, but then when it's down to the nitty-gritty or into the weeds, then they're like, oh, well, I'm a big picture kind of guy. We need big picture people and as well as small picture people. We need people who can think, but also people who can do. We need people who can create strategy, but also get tactical, who can fold their sleeves and get into the weeds, into the trenches, and deliver what's needed. So that's the kind of education that we need, and that's the kind of training that we need to provide to help folks in LMICs to get ready for the jobs of tomorrow. And ultimately, the goal is to create expertise. We have a lot of people who go around claiming expertise or claiming they're experts, but when you look beyond the surface, they're truly not experts. We don't want hype. The age of hype has to go away, and we need to think about how do we truly create experts. And I think of expertise in 3 domains. It's education. So you have the theoretical basis. There's a bed or foundation for all of that, right? So there's education, which could either be education in the classroom or education from the street. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go and get a degree. So when I'm not here talking about you going to get more degrees. No, I'm talking about either experiential learning, which is learning by doing, or didactic learning, which is in the classroom. However you get the education, whether you are taught by a professor or you go to YouTube to learn, just get education, however you get it. So that's one part of the pie. The other part of the pie is skills. Any day, anytime, I will pick skills over experience. I don't really care whether somebody comes and tells me, oh, I have 10 years of experience in this. Well, the 10 years of experience could really have been just 1 year of learning something and then repeating that one thing for the next 10 years. So anytime, I always pick skills over experience. And so I really don't care whether you say, oh, I've been creating software for the past 20 years. The question is, what can you do? Can you solve this problem? And that's where skills comes in, right? So skills means, can you solve problems? Experience means, oh, you've how long have you been doing this? What have you done? Where have you traveled? What kind of problems have you solved? So experience looks more into the past, whereas skills are looking into the present and into the future. So we don't want to dwell too much on the past, where we say, oh, I've spent 10 years working in this, or 20 years doing this, or 50 years doing X, Y, Z. The reality is that we don't care. Nobody cares really. Can you solve problems? That's the issue. And so build expertise has to focus on these 3 domains. We need people who know the theory, who understand the foundational basis. And that's important because it helps us manage complications. Without the theory, without the education, you may not know how to react or how to handle the situations when things go bad. And that's why we need education. But you also need experience to build confidence and the skills to also execute. So we need people who can, like I said earlier, have the big picture, think of strategy, but also people who can execute based on tactics. So tacticians as well as strategists. Both aspects of the aisle are completely needed. We also need people who understand the full depth of the problem, whatever problem you're solving. Your problem could be solving issues in education or issues in technology, or whatever the issue is, you need to understand the full breadth of it, the full depth of the problem. And this is the problem we have with modern society, where people just have a very superficial understanding of whatever space they are in. And as the saying goes, half knowledge is truly, truly dangerous, right? Because we have a lot of, individuals who go around, right, with the confidence of the competent, but without the competence. And that's really dangerous. It's not enough to just have a superficial understanding, because most problems are complicated. Most problems require in-depth knowledge. And so when you go about rushing to solve a problem just based on the superficial aspects of it, you create a solution that doesn't really solve anything. And so that's one of the things that we need to also emphasize. And it's particularly very important now because we live in an era where anyone can claim to be an expert. All you need to go do is go to ChatGPT and search a type of prompt and you can go on LinkedIn and sound very smart. So now more than ever, it's a very dangerous time for people to pass off as experts without really putting the time and the effort to really understanding their craft and their domain. And that's why for us to really think of how do we prepare people for the jobs of tomorrow, we need to understand that these things are complicated and that we need individually to make a very concerted effort to understanding and mastering our craft, right? And that takes a lot of time, trying and learning and understanding and, probing and doing all of those things to become truly well-crafted individuals who know our field and who know our crafts. That's very important. So what do the jobs of tomorrow look like? Well, undoubtedly, AI and data science play a very key role in tomorrow, even today. Let's not even talk about tomorrow, today's jobs. So it'll be unrealistic for us to talk about how do we prepare people for the jobs of tomorrow without acknowledging the role of AI and data science in this. And so it becomes very imperative that a very key part of what we need to do is to include these things in our curriculum. As the last speaker mentioned, most of our curricula are kind of outdated, right? And they're not preparing us for the jobs of today or tomorrow because the focus is on just rote memorization and just acquisition of knowledge. But knowledge today is a commodity good. Knowledge, anyone can get knowledge. So there's nothing really special about knowledge. It has to be about application, right? That's why knowledge is just, you can memorize facts and you can spit them out. However, wisdom is the application of knowledge. So how do we apply the things we have learned to solve real problems in society? That's the crux of the issue. So there are also trends from an academic perspective, and I acknowledge most of us here may be from academic institutions. So acknowledging some of the emerging trends in academia, in academic institutions. And some of this includes immersive learning. We have a whole new slew of technology like VR, AR. We have smart classes today. There is, focus on experiential learning. Now more than ever, as many universities go bankrupt, there's now focus that, okay, maybe how do we shift the educational model from the physical classroom to the digital world? Those are trends we need to be ready for, we need to be prepared for, and we need to become experts in. And then AI, like I mentioned earlier, AI is now in everything and anything. So how do we incorporate AI for personalized learning? And then for micro-credentialing, how does this also tie in? How do we get people certified in, areas of AI? We might say that certificates are not important, but in the world we live in, they're kind of somewhat important. People kind of try to say, okay, well, where I need a proof that you know this. And so preparing people for the workforce also means that how do we make sure that they know? That's very important. The first thing is that they know and understand and can apply, but that also we give them the proper credentials that can back up their claims. And then also recognizing that across the world, both even in high-income countries like the US and the UK, universities are in trouble. There are budget cuts, there are a whole lot of political issues that I would rather not go into that have a direct and measurable impact on, educational quality of education, right? And we can't just be spectators in this. We need to see and synthesize all of this and say how does this affect us, and how can we in LMICs position ourselves so that we are very resilient and that we don't just survive, that we thrive. And then we also have mega trends. Apart from the trends that are specific to higher education, we also have mega trends that are shaping the future of healthcare and education. We have a rapidly aging global population, but in most of LMICs, we have a very large or dominant younger population. And that's a resource. How do we tap these young people to get them into spaces like AI or technology, right? How so we become a massive powerhouse in shaping technological advancements in this century and that to come. And that's also very important to prepare us for today's epidemics, tomorrow's epidemics, global health challenges, whether it's emerging and re-emerging pandemics, whether it's non-communicable diseases like cancer or others Issues like climate change and health inequalities. Those are things that we need to be prepared for. And that brings me to the idea of disruptive innovation. Innovation is said to be disruptive if it meets these three cycles. It must be technological feasible, right? Obviously, if you can think of something, we should be able to write code that would generate that technology. If we cannot build the technology, then it's just a dream, it's just a wish. So that's the very first check. And this is where I think that we need to empower people to be dreamers. And for me, that's one area that I feel very sad about, that we don't have people who, the art of imagination has just left us. People no longer imagine things, right? And that's why any day, anytime, I will pick imagination over knowledge, because our knowledge is very finite. All of us, what anyone knows is constrained by the borders of their knowledge. That's why we say you don't know what you don't know. However, imagination is infinite. I may not know X, Y, Z, but I can let my mind roam and I can imagine those things. And that's where the beauty of technology comes in. If you can imagine it, you can build it. If you can think of something so radical, well, once you can put it down on paper, well, we'll write the code for you. It's going to come to life. And that's the beauty of it. And imagination is something that all of us have. You don't have to pay money to imagine things, right? The problem is that we use our imagination in very suboptimal ways. We imagine, oh, I'll just become rich and, and dominate the skies. Well, that's imagination, but maybe we can figure out ways to use that imagination in more productive ways. Or we just imagine ourselves, we use our imagination for ways that are suboptimal. That's the point I'm trying to say. But if only we could just harness it in ways that solve problems around us, not just talking about the problems, but imagining solutions to them. So I think there's somebody, can you mute yourself, please? I think there's
more than 1 hour.
The person who's speaking in the background.
Please mute everyone. Otherwise, remove them, whoever is making any disturbance. Remove them at once and block them. They should face the punishment. It's a serious global platform. They should use it very, very responsibly. If they are not serious, they should be removed even from the entire program. Please, Dr. Agako, please continue.
All right, thank you. So the first is the technological feasibility. And then whatever problem you're solving must meet human needs. If you want to solve a problem, you must make sure the problem you're solving meets two criteria. Number one, it needs to be a real problem, like a real measurable problem that affects people's lives. And we measure the seriousness of a problem in two ways. One, the severity of the problem on humans, or number two, the prevalence of a problem. If it affects many people, or if it affects a few people, but it affects them dramatically, we can say that that's a real problem. And number two, the second criteria you want to focus on is there should be money in that problem. So again, two parameters or benchmarks. One, you want to solve a real problem. You don't want to create a solution that is looking for a problem. And number two, you want to make sure that there is money in the problem. It's great to be a charitable organization, but if you're solving a problem, it's your job to make sure that that problem is profitable. Because if it's not profitable, it's not sustainable. And there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world today. The world runs on dollars. The world runs on money. So if you're going to solve problems, not only should it solve human needs, but they also must be business viability, right? That's why I talk about the two benchmarks. One, it has to be a real problem that solves the problem of human beings. Two, there must be money in that problem. And number three, it should be something we can write code and create. If we cannot create it, then it's just a dream. And again, that's why, one of the reasons why we need to create frameworks for people to learn. And one of such frameworks is through apprenticeship. It's very hard for you to learn all of these things in the classroom. I cannot think of any educational program that would sit down and teach you all of these things. But these are things you can learn through apprenticeship. We can create partnerships. And this is where the role of partnerships come. Like, okay, how do we create partnerships where our youth can learn how to take a problem that they've observed in the community, how to validate that problem, how to create a prototype for the solution technologically, and then how to market it. At the end of the day, you have to market it, right? So that people learn both in the classroom, but also on the streets, so that they're empowered, really. And this is where, again, like I said, disruptive innovation becomes important. Now, nobody can do it all alone. There are 4 basic parameters that you need for success. You need partnerships, like we've said over and over and over. You need processes. You can have the best idea and the best partnerships. If you don't have a good process, you're going to fail, right? The process, that's why you should have, SOPs for this and that. There should be structure in how you do things so that it's reproducible within your framework. You need a solid product, and you need people within an organization, people who, you surround yourself with. You need a team. So this is the people here refers to the team. You have your own team, the people outside your team that you're going to partner with, the processes that you're going to create to work with your team and with your partners, and then the products. All of this are to make sure that your product is successful and that you solve real problems around the world. I'm just going to go through each of them briefly and see how they can relate to this shared story we're talking about. So people can be, like I said, our institutions, maybe your university. It could be, that's the people you have. It could be a small team of 5 people or 6 people or 20 people or 100 people, however your size, that's also your people. And whatever the size, your job as leader is to make sure that you foster growth and inclusivity. Because at the end of the day, that's your biggest asset. The product is not your biggest asset, because if that product fails, the team, your people, can build another product. So the people must prioritize first and foremost above the product. People need to feel that they're valued, that they are respected, and that this is their home. And that's where, again, imagination comes here, because for people to really follow you and to really just persist with you, they must see something in your dream that they are a part of. And that's why you need to have a big dream. If the dream is just a small dream, people just see you in that dream only. They don't see themselves in your dream. And they're like, oh, well, we're just building for you. But if your dream is big and bold and almost impossible, the dream should be almost impossible, but obviously not impossible, right? It really challenges you and pushes the boundary of what you deem as possible. Then you have a group of people who are willing to follow you to the ends of the earth and to build that dream together with you. And on your part, you have to make sure that you foster growth and inclusivity. If it's an academic environment, you have students under you, you make sure that students learn. You are a mentor, not just a supervisor. And you create mechanisms, processes. Again, we'll come back to processes. Your job as a leader is simple: to get the good guys into the bus and to kick the bad guys off the bus, right? You want to create a team where it's a meritocracy, because the last thing you want is have folks on a team who are just mediocre or who just are laggards. That doesn't help. There's no way you're going to build anything great with that kind of approach. So you need processes for recruitment and for retention of great people in your team so that you can build great things. And so that's very important. And we also need to train, because the whole theme is, how do we train people for next jobs tomorrow? Well, we are not born with this knowledge. Nobody's born knowing about innovative strategy for recruitment. These are things that we learn through mentorship, right? And through, just observing and learning, and somebody taking you by the hand and showing you how it's done. And so it's very important that if we're going to train people for the jobs of tomorrow, we train them about people orientation, about how to hire, how to recognize talent, and all of those things, because that's extremely important. And then process, whether you're in academia or you are CEO in a company or your organization, process is important. In educational settings, for example, we need processes to both sustain the educational quality as well as to reform it and innovate around it, right? We can't just have a static process that never changes. that's how you become outdated. Your process has to be adaptive. It has to adapt to the times in which you live. Well, now we're in the age of AI. Instead of saying, oh, let's ban AI, that is a very, very backward approach to take. How about let us see how we can incorporate AI? How do we challenge our students to innovate around AI, right? And so, and that's just an example in academia, and ensuring that we prepare our students. Because even if you're not preparing your student, well, guess what? Somebody elsewhere is preparing their students. In China, for example, well, they've mandated, AI education in curricula from a very minor age. And so this is how we end up being backward, because we don't prepare ourselves, we don't prepare our kids, and so they are by default left behind while the rest of the world goes forward. And so it becomes very imperative that if we're going to make our youth to become competitive, that will prepare them for the technologies of today and of tomorrow, so that they're not just observers. We're not just here as observers just to look as the world is building things. We should be there as part of the creators and the innovators as well, because that's extremely important. And then the product. The product has to change. The way we measure the value of product has to change. In academia as well as in our daily lives, it just cannot be that the product we value is the paper, the research paper, where when we publish the paper, we're like, yay, we've published. How do we move our measurement of value beyond just publications? Because the reality is that we have to move beyond just educational settings to economic context and say, how are we creating economic value? How are we creating cross-generational wealth? How are we creating just improved quality of lives for ourselves? Those things cannot be achieved by just publishing the BMG or the Lancet. In fact, those ones are taking money from you. So the product has to evolve. We have to think bigger in terms of what the product is. It can't just be a paper for us, and when we get excited when we publish, right? And again, that's why we need to figure out how do we reposition the modern researcher, our students, and the youth of today as entrepreneurs. Theodore Levy, who is a professor at Harvard Business School, once said that creativity is thinking up new things, innovation is doing new things. So we need to move beyond just thinking to doing. And that's why at the beginning, I talked about the thinker-doer. It's not enough to just think. You also have to do, right? And try and fail. I think, we're always very morbidly afraid of failure, but we have to try and fail. And so when we see a problem, it's not enough to just talk about the problem or analyze the problem to death and talk about how the government is bad, because that's also a trap where we come in. We're always waiting for the government to come and solve problems. But what can we do in our own little space? Because when we see a problem, there are two ways to look at that problem. One way is to look at it as a problem. The other way is to look at it as an opportunity for us to innovate around that problem with a solution. And that's the product we're talking about. So, of course, I'm not saying writing papers is bad. I'm saying that it cannot be the only thing we're doing if we're going to prepare our youth for the jobs of tomorrow. And so the way we want to think about problems is not just solve the whole problem, but we need to think of it in stages. There are three steps to thinking about any solution. I mean, I work as a software engineer, so most of my thought processes are constructed around engineering. So in this way, if I see a problem, for example, the first question is, can I get this product to work on my machine? Can I create a small code? Can I write some code that will create a prototype of this solution, and I can use it on my machine and it solves the problem? I'm like, yeah, great. Then the next thing is, okay, can I integrate it with the rest of the solution? And then lastly, can I scale it? So scaling means that I can expand the solution so it works not just for one person or two people, but for 1 million people or 1 billion people, right? That's scaling. So that's how we want to think of problems. And, you talk about the classic idiom or proverbial saying, like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And this is a very great analogy to think of any problem we want to solve around us, especially the ones that are driven by, solvable by technology. You can take the biggest problem in the world Now, if you just look at it as one massive problem, it becomes intimidating. But take that problem and apply what we call SAP, split, apply, combine. I'm going to split this problem into its component parts. I'm going to solve one tiny problem at a time, and I'm going to combine them together into one solution. Now, if you did it that way, if that's your ideology, you will see that problems, even the most complex of problems, will just become just interesting, right? It shifts your mind frame from impossible to maybe just challenging. And that's why personally, I find it very unacceptable when people say something is impossible. I find that to be a statement of arrogance, because you have imagined that just because it's impossible for you, that it's impossible for the rest of us. So how about you just say it's impossible for you, or that as far as I know, I am not able to solve it at this time? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't believe in impossibilities. Like, every single problem can be solved if we just split it, apply the solution, and combine. And that's how we want to think of problems in our society. You know, and we don't have to start big. You don't have to say, I'm going to cure HIV or bring about world peace, or, you know, cure cancer. Look at small problems around you, small technological problems, and say, okay, how do I solve this problem in my university? It could be the smallest thing, right? It could be, you know, tracking XYZ or whatever the issue might be. You create a small solution that solves the problem, and that's how you get confidence to move on to the next problem and to the next one and to the next one. And that's how you become an expert. And I think that the greatest thing that any one of us can learn and become experts in to prepare us for the jobs of tomorrow is the ability to solve problems. And that is through code. And I mean, I can only speak of things that I know. And for me, code is like magic. Think of most things today that you will have been burned alive at the stake maybe 100 years ago, because they will have called it magic. Imagine you pick a phone today and you call somebody in India now. They can, or you text somebody, like that feels like magic. You know, if that happened 100 years ago, you'll be called a magician, right? But we do all of these things today, and it's through code. Just you know, and that just shows how much power we can leverage when we learn how to utilize this to solve our problems and those of the rest of the world. And now we have AI. AI gives us a great opportunity not just to replace software engineering, but to enhance it further. Like, imagine the things we could do when we take AI and we take software engineering and we couple them together. And just imagine the amount of things we could build that not only solve our problems, but allows us to commercialize them, that allows us to make money and to improve our quality of life and those of our families around us, and to pass on wealth from ourselves to our children and their children, right? That's the opportunity we have today with AI. So if you're already in school and you already know you're taking courses on statistics and you know it very well, you already have half of the problem solved, because AI engineering is a large part of it is statistics, right? So don't think of it as, oh, it's so hard. The question is, how then do I get the other half of knowledge to put together so I can solve problems? And that's how we want to think about these things. And so, like I said, one of the best things you can do is to learn how to code. I have a 9-year-old daughter that, you know, and for me, it's like learn how to code is required. And so even at that age, she's quite proficient in Python. Why? Because I feel that it's one of those core elements that every person has to know. So that's a mindset that we might want to adopt. Now, I'm not saying coding is for everybody, but I'm saying that for those who can do it, that is definitely a skill you want to learn, because it is truly the finger of God. However, I must quickly add that just writing code doesn't make you an engineer or a problem solver. You have to learn how to solve problems. So writing code is not the same thing as solving problems. So the ability to solve problems means even without code, because writing code is the last part of the problem. You have to sit down first with your pen and paper and deconstruct the problem and say, what exactly is this problem? How am I going to break it down? How am I going to solve it? How am I going to combine them together? What are the issues? You solve all of these things in your head first, and then you come and write the code. So again, not just to hype writing code. We're talking about we need to learn how to be problem solvers. And so this is not something that anybody can teach you, unfortunately. It is a mindset that you need to adopt where you learn how to solve problems progressively. And then moving on from product to partnerships, that's very important because no one can do it all alone by themselves. So we need partnerships. Partnerships could help us to amplify our efforts and to reach more people and have more impact. Because no one holds the keys to the kingdom. An African proverb says if you want to go fast, you want to go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to go together. And that's where partnerships come. But partnership obviously has risks. One of the risks that come from partnership is when you have asymmetric information. The bottom line here is that partnerships should be a win-win. It doesn't mean it has to be a 50-50 win, but it must be a win-win. And so when a partnership is based on selfish or self-interest, it's doomed to fail. Because in that case, you have one person smiling and another person crying. That's not a win-win. Both parties have to win for it to be a win-win. And so we need to be aware of the risks of partnership. And I think this is something that the previous speaker alluded to, where he said that not all partnerships are meaningful. Some of them you have to abandon. So if you are in a partnership that seems very selfish, maybe that's not a true partnership because it has to be a win-win for it to be a win. And it's also not about, the goal is to collaborate, right? To cooperate. Cooperate means I'm operating and you are operating. And we said, instead of us operating in silos, let us cooperate, right? The goal is to amplify our combined efforts. But if I'm operating and you're just sitting down and you come and say, oh, let's cooperate, that's not cooperation because you are not operating. So how are we amplifying our combined efforts, right? It is not supposed to be parasitism. It's supposed to be cooperation where we amplify our joint efforts. And it's also not an effort to just become echo chambers, right? It's collaborate, not corroborate, right? We're not just, I'm not here to be your echo chamber and you're not here to be my echo chamber, right? We can disagree. I think that's a problem with people today. There's very fragile egos and, the ability to take criticism is not there. I'm just supposed to agree with everything you're saying. That's not true collaboration. It's a push and pull dynamic. And so you should be able to be comfortable being pushed and comfortable being pulled. Like I said, it has to be a win-win for it to be a win. We all have to be laughing. It doesn't mean that it's 50-50, but there has to be, shared victories for all of us. And the philosophy here is that it's better to have a small slice of something big than 100% of nothing. And that's why we need to collaborate in today's society. And so in conclusion, the idea here is that, for us to label our endeavors as success, there has to be some impact, however you measure it, on the global level, societal level, on academic level, or operationally, right? And these are things we keep in mind when we are, engaging with partners, because partnership, like I said, sometimes ends up being very bureaucratic. And so the frameworks that, helpful to keep in mind. At Chi-Squares, for example, we move fast. And so we are never going to be bogged down by partners who take forever to do any single thing. And our decision framework is simple. It's any given thing, an open door, a closed door. Closed door means that once you enter, you can't come out because maybe there are significant costs, there are legal issues, there are issues of, copyright. In those kind of cases, you want to take your time and carefully consider those decisions. An open door decision, you can come in and out. Why are we taking forever? That's the same mindset we want to bring to partnerships. Agile, move fast, break things, create impact. We can always come back and fix things later. But that's ultimately what we need to do to be successful. And so I'll end with this. On this note, change is always hard at first, messy in the middle, and really gorgeous at the end. If only we push ourselves and if only we imagine. All right. Thanks so much for your time, and I will take questions now. Prof, I think you're on
Can you
mute.
hear me? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful, Dr. Agaku. I will call you Israel because that's more informal and more friendly. I hope that's fine. Yeah. So it's been such a learned and such a realistic and practical. Like many times, many speakers come and they give away many bookish knowledge, and that doesn't actually reflect and get translated into real life then, and then it becomes an issue. So I was very happy because I was happy because our training program, this global advanced certificate program, I just want to make you aware a little bit about it. It's the only this kind of program running in the entire planet right now, literally, because this is the program that actually aims as well as does it practically by making people do collaboration in an immersive, practical, real life environment, and thereby offering a global cohort of people from more than 100 countries to come together, collaborate on research projects, serious scientific research projects, and then complete it within 3 months' time. And all this is performed on a daily basis. It's a very intensive research process. We have dedicated tutors and mentors who have come from top eminent institutions, and they are eminent scientists themselves. And this is completely offered for free. Those who are listening, I must tell everyone, because we are putting things on record, that everything is offered completely for free. At no point we charge anyone any money. However, there is a compensation cost which we have put it into the clauses, because there are some people who are abusing our platform, coming and stealing IPR, etc. This is beyond the purview of our interaction today. But the thing is, I just wanted to make you aware that Professor Akaku, this is such an excellent platform that we have created and this is a labor of love that we have been working on for the past 25 days. And for the past 25 days, all our global cohort of candidates have been constantly engaged with each other 24/7, literally, all is asynchronous in 25 different working groups and one main WhatsApp group. Okay, and more than 600 people are very active right now out of 900 registrants, and they are working on different projects. Many people have already completed their proposals presentation. There were 2 rounds of proposal presentation. They did excellently well, and we are targeting right now more than 250 papers in the next 6 months. That's the kind of scope and scale at which we are operating. So this is real life, world scale kind of collaboration. And the goal of this advanced certification program is, this is titled as strategic research collaboration and communication for young emerging researchers in the LMICs. So no such program is conducted anywhere, as far as my knowledge is concerned. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as my knowledge is concerned, nobody is training you as to how to collaborate, because this is one thing that nobody trains you in. We learn it. We have all learned it. We have committed mistakes, and we will definitely commit many more mistakes in the coming days, and we'll learn more as we grow and evolve over the years. But this is just a humble effort to train our younger generation so that they can develop better ways of effective collaboration, strategic collaboration, so that they can learn how to work together and co-create together and coexist together. That's the most important part of this whole training program. And yes, let me tell you, it's by no means very easy walk in the park. It's been extremely challenging for our total tutors team, for ourselves, even the group leaders. Every group has a leader and at least 2. Extremely difficult journey. Today in the evening itself, we had difficulty getting to people to come and join the meeting also, because it's a Sunday evening. It's very difficult to come and join the meeting, even if they know very well that their attendance is strictly monitored and they will not get a certification and will not be eligible for the publication. Still, some people are lazy and they do not cooperate. So this is a difficult process, often because it's quite a global platform. But we just want to make it ensure that if you are not ready to get out of your comfort zone and not ready to create change, not ready to actually keep on innovating and keep on taking risks, medium term risk, like moderate level of risk, then probably you are far off from success. And this is something what theories of psychology, which have been done for several years, several decades, proves. And so Dr. Agaku just told you on many mantras of success. Now we'll go quickly into our panel discussion without wasting any further time, because we are running a little bit late. So it's better that we run into it. There will be no question answer right now. There will be question answer after the panel discussion. So please drop your hands. We are not giving you opportunity right now. Okay. So please drop your hands. Thank you. And please mute yourself and also close your video. Okay. It creates disturbance. Please close your video and mute yourself at all points of time unless you are asked. Thank you. Okay. So we are not giving any opportunity. Raful, please close your video and lower your hands. Thank you. Okay, we'll only do that after the panel. So suggested questions I had already provided, but before we go into that, because you have already made my job very, very easy. You have talked about so many things which I wanted to ask. So I'll ask a few more other things rather. So you have already talked about vital skills, but I will still want you to dwell a little bit more on that and maybe tell me 3 critical, vital and critical skills which you think the emerging LMIC researchers need the most to thrive in today's global research landscape. Because today's global research landscape, as it was pre-COVID, it has changed greatly. So what kind of critical skill sets that you think a researcher from LMIC and in fact all over the world should have or must have?
So I think number 1 would be the ability to ask the right questions. That sounds like something easy, but it obviously it's not accessible to everyone. So it's an art form. So how do you practice asking the questions that matter, right? And then in terms of impact, in terms of the utility of the research. So that would be the first one. The second skill is how do you commercialize research? Because if we spend so much time developing manuscripts and we are very skilled in this. So great, you publish, but how do you make money off of it? Some of us come from poor countries, and sometimes our salaries are not enough to support us. So what use is the skill if it cannot sustain you in terms of like just day-to-day living? So the second skill I would say would be, and entrepreneurship and the business of research. How do you make money off this? And then the third I would say would be, on a global scale, learning emerging technologies. Right now it's AI, or tomorrow is something else. You don't have to be an expert, but you definitely don't want to be stuck at the back either, because you make yourself irrelevant. So I think that ability to learn how to learn is extremely important.
Yes, definitely. I completely agree. In fact, I'm ready with the fire of questions, and the way you're answering, I think it will not take a lot of time because it seemed like completely prepared. Okay, that's good. So our participants are enjoying it, it seems. Okay, I go to the next question, and this will give you a little bit of opportunity to talk about the visionary organization, which is Chi-Squares. So, and how is it helping learning opportunities to the young emerging researchers globally?
So Chi-Squares, we are an engineering company, we're a tech company. But it's very hard to realize that because we do a lot of teaching. So people always imagine we're an educational company, where we're actually a tech or engineering company. But we believe in social entrepreneurship, which is, it's not only about making money, it's also about impacting your society. And the area where we have chosen to have an impact on our society is through knowledge sharing for free of charge. So we do a lot of things. We have courses. And then now we're also trying to get accreditation to become an actual university, Chi-Squares University, where we want to offer courses that really empower LMIC folks from LMICs, like tech epidemiology, a master's degree in tech epidemiology. So how do you, for example, bridge together epidemiology and tech, right? Because again, we can't talk about LMICs without talking about how do we lift our people from poverty. That any discussion that does not talk about economic sustainability, I think is just an academic discussion. But we can't afford to just be having purely academic discussions. We need to have discussions that impact lives directly, both our lives and the lives of others. We can't be talking about things while we're hungry, or right? So there has to be a mechanism where we talk about skills that have a direct impact on marketability. And that's one of the things we want to do with Chi-Square University, to provide training in a manner that people actually learn. So when you enroll, it's not just book knowledge. You are guaranteed to come out with very concrete skills that would definitely make an impact on you. And it's the model will be based on both educational, didactic education, but also hands-on learning. But like I said, overall, Chi-Square in general, we're a tech platform that will build scientific tools for researchers for data collection or research in general.
Right. Okay, great. That's definitely something which our young researchers are listening to, and they would make best use of that information. So, as a partner member of the Global Consortium of Global Health, how is Chi-Square positioning itself to lead and build the capacity of young researchers in the global health research globally, especially in crisis?
I think that's where partnerships come in. For example, we're partnering with you, and we can sit down and and talk more about how do we boost partnerships, so that it's a global influence. And while we're having those partnerships, we can also have trainings on different aspects. How do you write a paper? How do you get clients for business? If you are, let's say, doing the business of research, how do you deliver value at scale? It's one thing to write a manuscript. It's one thing to write many manuscripts at scale as a business owner, because if it takes you 5 months to write a paper, then you are going to be a really bad businessman, because you can't deliver value at scale. So those are some of the things we want to talk about. How do you deliver value at scale as a person who's running a business for research?
Right. Excellent. Great. So there is a little bit of what we are doing as well in order to make it financially viable and sustainable. And that's somewhere where you can help us, because we are a completely social impact driven organization, and as a global organization, I think we need a lot more hand-holding and support from your side, because you are the king of the entrepreneur, in my opinion, because you are doing it so successfully, and I feel so inspired by looking at the kind of work you do. So that brings me to the next question. So how can partnerships between academia and industry be fostered to benefit LMIC researchers? Please give us some examples from your direct experience.
So I think that one thing that needs to change is that academia has to stop looking at industry as the dark side. Academia has this very self-righteous disposition where they imagine that they are the only righteous people in the world and everybody else are sinners who have to be condemned. That is not a very helpful mindset at all. So I think that the first thing is we need to change our orientation. and especially now, right, with cuts from NIH in terms of grants, where can we apply for grants? You can look at industry. Most of my research has been focused on, like, I run a CRO. I design studies for drug and pharmaceutical companies. And one of the questions I've always received from academia a long time ago was, "Oh, Israel, how do you sleep at night, knowing you are designing studies for drug companies?" I'm like, I sleep soundly. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, is this self-righteousness that makes no sense? So
do you think this moral policing really helps?
like this moral pinnacle that we sit on so we have to first of all destroy that pinnacle, that moral platform that we have somehow positioned ourselves. I'm not sure how we got on that platform, but that needs to stop. We need to view the industry as true partners. They may not have their perception towards science may not be the same as ours, because it's more practical there. But we just need to realize that we are allies. Nobody wants to have business or interactions with someone who's already looking down on them in a very condescending manner. That's not true partnership. That is just it can't work that way. So I think there are lots of opportunities, and I think that's something that the partnerships that we can train, right? Like, how do you position? How do you even tap into those opportunities? The opportunities are there, but how do you learn to tap into them? And also, I think that's also where we have an opportunity to create partnerships not just with other people in academia, but in this kind of sessions too. We can even invite industry leaders to come and give talks from their own perspective as industry leaders. For example, pharmaceutical companies or other companies. And I think that perspective is also very rich to show that at the end of the day, they're not such a dark side so much as we paint them to be, but they are our partners, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I think we are looking forward to such things, and we are planning for such things right now. And maybe I'll require some of your help in that regard. I'll get back to you on that. But getting back to Dr. Lucho, as he said, it has to be a partnership of dignity, So if a partnership of dignity has to be fostered, I think if we are looking down upon someone already, then I don't think that's going a very long way in terms of fostering or even enhancing or nurturing any form of relationship. So you're completely right on that. So I think we should work on that. And in fact, our younger researchers here should learn this, that whoever you are planning to work with, collaborate with, it's the first requirement that two things: unconditional trust and unconditional respect. If it not there, I think we are making no headways, because that is just pure and sheer opportunism, and that doesn't actually create lifelong or a long-term collaboration of any kind. Okay, so we go to the next question. What practical advice would you give to researchers looking to build strategic collaborations in industry and academia interface, at the industry and academia interface?
So I think that when you propose a partnership, it should be very clear what you are benefiting from it and what the other party is benefiting from as well. Most times you hear proposals come and say, oh, let's collaborate. But I'm waiting to hear, so what's in it for me? And that part is not said. So the question is, why should I spend my time on something that doesn't benefit me? Like, nobody's an altruist, right? At the end of the day, we engage in things because there is shared value. There is, and so that's something we must keep in our minds, right? And as you are going to talk to this person and say, hey, let's collaborate, you have to now articulate how it benefits you and how it benefits them, and how, together it's going to be better than them working alone. Because if the contribution you are bringing to me is just the same as what I would have done on my own, then it's not then it doesn't really benefit me, right? If because so I think so that's one of the things we need to really articulate, that partnership and collaboration means it's a win-win, and it's your job to articulate how it's a win-win for both parties. If you've not done that, then you will just hear crickets. The person's not going to respond because you have not really addressed the problem that they're thinking of in their minds at that moment.
Definitely. I completely agree. Yeah, fully agreed with that. I think people have to be more strategic and more maybe work on their long-term vision, and also be a little bit assertive about what's in it for childhood. We have been taught in elementary that don't ask this question, that what's in it for me. We are often told that don't ask this question. But I think the more I grow, I think I should ask this question more often, because many times people simply waste my time. They just literally waste all my time, but they give nothing at the end of the day. And it has happened countless times with me, literally. I have wasted countless hours talking to them over different meetings. And at the end of the day, I find that they just simply are wasting my time. They are not serious. They are not actually committed to the goal of collaboration or doing anything significant, and they're not even clear on what they want to achieve in their lives. But that's the first thing. Obviously, what can they even contribute to me or my life, So that's something I think all collaborators must be mindful of. Okay, so we go to the next question. So how important is mentorship, and how can one find or become a good mentor?
So mentorship is very important, because there's some things that nobody tells you, but somehow you're expected to know. And this could range from just minor things like etiquette to major things like, getting funding. And there's also the issue of access. In life, in many scenarios, you cannot get into some rooms or in some places unless somebody who is inside grabs you by the hand and takes you into that room. Otherwise, you are never, ever going to get access. It doesn't matter how qualified you are or how smart you are. The world runs on partnerships, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. Or better yet, it's who knows you. It's not even who you know. Yes, because you may know a lot of people, but they don't know you.
That's so true. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. So a mentor is that person who has influence and who is willing to take you by the hand and say, you know what, I'm going to lead you just because I like you, not because you have anything to really offer me, but because I really want you to succeed. So I think that's the importance of mentorship. And I think that for you to get a good mentor, you have to be willing to do something, right? Because this person is very busy. Again, this is what I mean by win-wins. The fact that they are a mentor doesn't mean that it's going to be you winning and they're not benefiting. Find ways of bringing value to people. And it doesn't have to be monetary value. It could be things that just make their lives easier so that they're like, okay, there's an impetus, there's some consideration there. So for me, I look at life through the concept of win-win. We need to create win-wins. Whether it's for partnerships or for mentorships, there must be win-wins.
Definitely. I think quoting John Nash, I think we have to all work on the win-win algorithm. Otherwise, we are all losers. At the end of the day, prisoner's dilemma to a win-win scenario. We have to work on John Nash's equilibrium. I don't know how much people know about economics, but this is what economics teaches us. And you're right that many times who we know is important, but at the end, who knows you and who cares for you, who likes you, makes all the difference, And this has been one of the things which I feel maybe hasn't worked out for me as an individual, because a lot of people haven't actually sort of taken me into that meeting room, as you were saying, by grabbing me by my hand. It hasn't happened yet, I think. Maybe I will need to find a mentor, a godfather or godmother at this age, at the age of 40. And I think young people, those who are in the 20s, they should start thinking in this direction. If they can find a critical mentor, not just someone just based on some sort of ego massaging, you have to work on getting a critical mentor who actually cares for your growth and intellectual growth, emotional growth, and your personal growth, and probably that will be the setting stage for any young emerging researcher to find such a mentor and maybe contribute something to them so that it can create that sort of partnership win-win situation. Because many times if you are young, you don't have a lot to offer other than your time, and that can be challenging. And many times young people don't realize that the most important thing that anybody has to offer on earth is the time that we have. And if you're not good at managing your time, then probably you may miss out on important opportunities which would have otherwise been available to you just by being exposed to the right kind of mentor. So I hope I made sense to the young listeners who are listening to us. Next question. So how institutional support structures are necessary to drive skill building for LMIC researchers, and how critical is the role of sound monitoring?
So from my experience, I find that the most important resource any institution has, one, their alumni network, and two, current faculty who have a link to industry. Now, there are some faculty who have no clue about what they're doing. Like, all they do is read books and write books. And then there are some faculty who have deep linkages with the industry, like they do consulting. Those are the gold mine. You need to go to these people and learn at their feet and say, I want to help with your project, and and just learn. This becomes an apprenticeship. And then the second resource is, like I said, the alumni network. And most alumni network organizations have hundreds of thousands of members in the organization. And this is something that I use a lot. I will go to the head of alumni and say, okay, every single year, you're always sending me a request to send you and support the alumni with money. Well, this is my turn now. I think most times we give, but we don't know how to ask back. You have to master the art of asking back. And
I think I should practice that as well.
Exactly. So it's like, you say you have 400,000 alumni. Great. I need access to all of them. I just need you to send this letter, because a letter coming from me carries no weight. But a letter coming from the institution to alumni carries weight. It's not about the content of the letter, it's who sent the letter. That is what matters. That adds credibility. And it just gives it some gravitas. And so we just have to learn because everything the university is teaching you is something you could learn by yourself. The one thing that you cannot have gotten by yourself is those access to the alumni network, accesses to, and so don't just go there, pay school fees, and then leave, because you actually didn't get anything that you couldn't have gotten by yourself. That is my own framework to those things. So I have mastered the art of asking back and getting back from systems, not just giving and giving and giving.
Correct. Definitely. I think we have to get out of that mode of like, okay, we completed our degree, then we are done with it. The institution has done a wonderful job by educating us. I think we have to get out of that mode, because I think we are not doing any. They are not doing any charity to us, because we are paying a lot of money. Especially, I'm talking in the context of international students who go to Western universities and offer almost 5 times the fee of any local student. If you go to any UK institution, you will be like paying 5 times the money. I have paid, and even I have got several scholarships to study. And so I have seen how international students go there, study, and even don't get a post-study visa to continue working. And that's the kind of inclement immigration scenario that has been persisting for the past decade at least. I feel very unfortunate that this is happening. But I think the universities, if anybody from the UK, US, anyone is listening, I think they should actually patch up their university system, because it's very, very important that you actually help your students, because if they are in better positions, they would be helping you back in the future. If they're not in good conditions, if they're not well placed, they cannot help you. Whenever you reach to them saying like, give us donations, they'll not give any donation, because you didn't help them when they need it. Right? So I think you owe them a lot. The onus lies on the universities and institutions. And I think it is also reciprocal in the sense that sometimes we have to reach out to them saying, okay, why don't you help us do something? We are doing something here. Let's say we are trying to create our own entrepreneurship, a small little startup. Why don't you help us? So I think we should reach out more often to each other, and that's the way forward, rather than operating in silos. And universities have to be more receptive to the kind of critical feedback even given by the young researchers. And in LMICs, it's altogether different kind of game, because the ball game is like LMIC universities feel as if they're doing a huge lot of charity to the students by educating them, which I find really outrageous, in the sense that you are doing nothing. It's just basic education that you're offering, just a degree certificate, but at the end of the day, very little employability skills, no literally cross-functional skills. And that's actually very unfortunate, because if you look at India, Indian Institute of Technologies, which are labeled as the best of the institutes of technologies in the world, some reports say, which are national again, not abroad, they are saying that more than 70% of the IIT graduates are means not employable. So that's the kind of status. And they're the best of the engineers in the country, and some in the world. They are not employable. So why are they not employable? Because they don't possess many employability skills, cross-functional transferable skills. Simple. And so that's where the universities are lagging behind quite greatly. And I think they have to work on that. If they have to prepare the 21st century workforce, which is ready to take the next generation opportunities, they must play their vital role. Otherwise, they'll become redundant in the coming days, maybe, who knows? And maybe Chi-Square universities like Chi-Square's University, Global Consortium will take over. Who knows? I'm just being optimistic here. Okay. Okay, the next, what are the biggest challenges to train the next generation of LMIC researchers, and how can we use strategic capacity building in industry-ready skills for the 21st century workforce?
The biggest challenge, I think, is that we have a mindset of free. Everything should be given to us for free. There's no free lunch in the world. And the thing is that we also demand for free things from our fellow men, like from our fellow LMIC people. We feel like, oh, why should I be paying to you? Now that makes it hard, because again, like I said earlier, if it's not profitable, it can't be sustainable. You can't run anything great on charity. It just can't work. It might work for a short time, but it can't work for a long time. So I think that's the first problem, the problem of mindset, where we somehow feel entitled that, oh, it should be free, right? The first question we ask is Is it free? It's like, why? That's why the 48 rules of power say, despite the free lunch, we need to inculcate in folks that for you to get value, you need to be willing to pay. Number two is a mindset that anything that comes from LMICs must be inferior. I mean, we have a very condescending view of ourselves that if it didn't come from the Western world, oh, it must be horrible, right? Maybe I don't know how to put it in a very eloquent way, but that's the mindset in general that I've observed.
It's colonized mindset. It's a colonized mindset.
Yeah. True. And so that becomes very hard, right? Because you are engaging with people who already have a very preconceived idea of, who have already measured you and said, oh, well, I'm just going to, and unfortunately, that bleeds through in many other ways. It bleeds through in how they interact. It bleeds through in how they comply. It bleeds through in how much effort they put into the program, because the perceived value in their eyes is small. That is a problem. So we cannot create sustainability with those kind of mindset. So that decolonization of our minds must take place first.
Yes, completely agree. Yeah. I think we have to start with decolonization. In the words of Professor Lucio, it has to start with decolonization of mind, which I've been talking about for the past 15 years at every platform. But not many people are actually listening and attending to it, it seems, because every time I do something, I always feel that people say, oh, who is coming? Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge? Are these professors coming? If nobody is coming, Western University professors are not coming, then it's probably not worth it. They have time. That's the kind of attitude people have. Even big professors who talk about such fancy terms like decolonization, and that's the kind of mindset people actually have, and that's the reality. And at the end of the day, it's all about maintaining and striking a balance. And we know that we are operating in a world which is heavily power driven, and we have to operate and balance everything off at the same time. So I'm truth right now, because I have to ask you very other important question, which without wasting much time, because I know that you have been here with us for almost 2 hours now. So we have to start with the decolonized mind, but that would not happen in a day or two. It has to start by observing and being reflexive about our own mindsets first. Many times who is speaking is important to them rather than what they are speaking. And that is one of the things that I've observed about the LMIC researchers and LMIC people in particular, because we often don't value our own people. We don't know how to value our own talent, and many times we keep grieving. If, for example, I'm not given value, then I'll complain about it. But I do not know how to actually value and appreciate my fellow colleagues, my friends, and everyone in my own countries and in our context. And that is very unfortunate. Like the first thing that struck me, like when I was thinking about who to invite for this panel discussion series, while we were designing this advanced certificate program, I thought like, okay, we are always talking about calling people from Harvard, Oxford, all these places. Yes, we'll call them, but we'll call people of color. We'll not call white people. Why? People may call me racist here, but I'm being very particular because people of color have their own perspectives and diverse perspective to offer. And we are a fully global South-driven organization, and we are organizing this program specifically meant for LMIC researchers. We had some American and UK students as well, Germany students as well. But besides that, mostly LMIC students. So I think our young researchers and also senior professors who are based in different Western universities, they're doing terrific work. And if they come and they speak to us, I think our young researchers will learn a great deal. So I don't see any reason why should we just call a white professor because they have more wisdom to offer. I don't see any rational or justification for that, honestly speaking. So if at all we have to call people from Oxford to add a more flair to our program, then probably it should be someone who is an eminent expert, but they may be a person of color, and there are literally 196 countries, and out of which most countries are in the global south. And most of them are alumni, they're studying or working at different top universities. We can call them, invite them, and that's something which struck me. And then I thought about it, and based on that, we started interacting and contacting people, and you'll be very surprised. Many people actually like the idea, and they actually have given consent also to come and on board and speak to the global cohort very soon. So we are looking forward to have some more exciting speakers because today is the 4th session that is happening, and so far 6 people have come from different parts of the world, and you are the sixth speaker if I exclude myself. So that brings me to the last question to ask you. Please give your young participants, please give our young participants here some valuable success mantra to be successful entrepreneurs in the healthcare domain and the social impact sector.
So I have 2 mantras to share. The first is that the road to heaven feels like hell, and the road to hell feels like heaven. So if you're having fun now, well, just know that you're on the road to hell. You know, this is when you want to
That's
really.
Very poetic. That's very poetic, Doctor. Israel, you should become a poet, not an entrepreneur.
No, because if it's too easy, like it can't be that easy. Because if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So that's the one, right? So know that commit yourself to hardship, commit yourself to a difficult life now. And the second, nugget of wisdom is that, see, in this life you're going to suffer. That you cannot escape suffering. Now, there are 2 types of suffering: those that you have imposed on yourself, or that which is imposed on you by the world. If you don't impose suffering on yourself now to learn and to master your craft and to innovate, guess what? The world will impose suffering on you, and that is 10 times worse. So the bottom line is that, just resign yourself and hunker down and build. Build in silence. Don't build and go and take a big megaphone and announce. No, just don't worry about the hype. We get too carried away by hype. Just focus on building, and when the results are ready, the world will know you.
Yeah, definitely. I think the profound wisdom that you just offered, just in few words, I think it will take a lot of time for our young researchers, even me, to process it and maybe apply that if possible. I don't know how much of that they understood, and I got out of that is, first of all, you need to understand that life is not easy. It's not a rosy dream. It's not a walk in the park. It's actually tough. And you should be ready to put in the effort and make work hard for it if you're actually willing and interested to get success, real success, and in true sense, because easy things never stay long for a very long time. That would be something which the young researchers here and whoever is listening to this call should realize this, because many times there is a lot of competition happening in academia these days, especially in MITs, to just get their names published in some papers somehow, to put their names somehow, like ghost authorship, very, very rampant ghost authorship is going on. And I am noticing that very, very frequently. And many people who have done nothing, literally, their names are there in different papers, which I find extremely unfortunate. But that's very frequent and happening. I do not know simply how to address that issue, because obviously I can't be the Hercules to handle all the world's problem. Let people take care of it. In the meantime, we can only hope and pray and maybe train our younger emerging researchers to act ethically, work harder, more resiliently, and stay tuned and get prepared to become successful by having some really interested and dedicated and committed mentors, and probably that will keep them in good state for all their life. So that's all for now. Thank you so much, Dr. Israel. I think we had a wonderful, terrific laugh and lots of good discussion. I'm sure our young participants enjoyed it. Now I open the floor to some young researchers to ask questions. We'll allow 2 people, maximum 3, not more than that. So those who want to ask the question, please raise your hands and I'll announce your name. You will come and ask questions. Okay, so we start. Dr. Abhinas, please ask your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful discussion on the on the topic of how to bring the next generation of researchers. I really loved it, and you brought up a very important thing that the topic of research should be started at very young age, or the education should be very good. So my question in this line is, in this world of global research, and having multiple sets of education systems, how can we systematize or make a very equitable knowledge distribution? And is it necessary to have a very same set of education system? That's my first question. If yes, then what are the parameters and how should we go about it? Otherwise, how should researchers from LMIC should cope up with like the great universities, so-called great universities? Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks. So I wouldn't worry so much about labels of universities. Whether you went to I went to Harvard, and when I finished from Harvard, I felt I was scammed. I was like, I genuinely thought I was a victim of scam.
I felt the same about Cambridge and other places.
So the moral of the story is that don't worry about great schools. Worry about becoming a great person, right? Worry about becoming an institution in yourself, because at some point you build your brand name to be so big that it doesn't even matter. You are now an institution by yourself. But for that to happen, you really, really need to understand the basics. Before you can fly, learn how to walk. Understand the basics. Understand what is data before you begin to say. I think the problem is that people get caught up with all fancy, sophisticated topics these days. But no, forget about the sophisticated stuff. Learn the basics, right? Learn how to walk before you can fly. Understand all the basics first, and then you build on that, because you can't disseminate what you don't have, right? And the world can't run on hype or run on buzzwords. You got to learn the fundamentals, and so that's what I will encourage. And yes, the rest is really simple. So, and there's no shortage of places you can get information. You can go to YouTube. You can, ChatGPT is there for personalized education. Take a concept you don't understand, just write a prompt to ChatGPT. Explain this to me like a 6-year-old child. And then you can increment it. Explain it to me like a 12-year-old. And then you build your knowledge. And then you understand things from the basics, right? So that's what I will encourage. Not cloud chasing, not chasing an institutional name, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, so next in line is Jusu Musa. Please ask your question quickly.
Thank you so much. So my question is, what global policies are necessary to prevent the next pandemic, which or why strengthening local health systems resilience? For example, in Sierra Leone.
Okay, great question. I spent such a long time in Sierra Leone, Tonkolili, and every other place there, Freetown, during Ebola. Wow. I enjoy eating cassava leaf with lots of oil. Gosh, I got high cholesterol from all the oil. So
yes,
yeah. And so it's I've always worked in outbreak. Oops, sorry, let me check my computer. I've always worked in outbreak response. And here's the kicker, right? Unfortunately, there's no policy, there's no global policy we can implement to prevent or stop the next pandemic. Pandemics will occur. And we're going to have new pandemics, we're going to have re-emerging pandemics. What will matter is how are we prepared to stop it in time, because think of the etiology or the anatomy of an outbreak or an epidemic. It always starts from a small cluster, and then it grows rapidly. Why? Because we do not have the capability to prevent it. And some of these things are pathetic because they come from over-reliance on foreign partners. We had some countries where, with the stoppage of USAID funding, they could not even access their own data in the country. Like that is really, I cannot express how horrible that is, right? So if you cannot even have, after a whole decade or decades of foreign aid, you do not even have access to data, your own data, when the foreign partners leave, how then are you going to stop the next cluster from becoming a full-blown epidemic or becoming the pandemic? You can't. So it starts with building capacity. It starts with, saying, what can we do on our own? How do we train our people, right? And unfortunately, I think the sad reality is that in many countries I go, every small thing they'll say, oh, we are waiting for partners. I'm like, why are you waiting for partners? Surely this small thing you can read by yourself. Like, what? This talk about partners has become a big problem, such that even the smallest thing, is talk about partners. And that's a really, really defeatist mindset. We need to create, sustainable structures where we can solve our own problems by ourselves. If we fail to do that, well, any talk about the global policy is just doomed to be dead on arrival because it can never do anything. It just doesn't have teeth.
Okay. Next, so we have who's this person? I'm just not able to see their name. Okay, just give me a second. Sema. Can you please speak, Sema?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Makula from Uganda.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Israel, for the presentation. It is really insightful. Actually, I've mastered one issue, thinking to doing. And now my question goes to, for example, you come up with an idea, like a problem, and you want to solve the problem, maybe to help the community. So you write the research, come up with your research, do data collection, you collect the insights, then you find out the results, do the dissemination, you publish the results. So, but you want to make use of these results, maybe to solve that problem that is existing. So, and you find that you have to come up with partnership. The challenge, for example, in Uganda, you present an idea, maybe to a partnership, you're not granted. They take the big challenge. And there may be another thing is you realize this kind of funding to the community. So how best we go about that problem, like forcing funding, kind of.
Okay.
Could you hear him properly?
Yeah, it was broken, but I think I was able to piece it together. The question is, you found the problem and you went about collecting data, and then you realized you don't have funding. So how do you go about that? My answer is, number one, please, let's really get away from this mindset that the solution to a problem is to write a paper. No, you're not solving any problems by writing a paper. In the academic world, that there may be some context to that, but if you really want to be in the business of solving problems and you want to roll up your sleeves and solve problems, well, let's just address the problems head first, right? Now, number two is we need to learn how to bite an elephant in small pieces. We don't want to swallow the whole elephant as a whole, but you can bite, in small pieces. So the problem might be big. You don't have to solve the whole problem at one go, right? You can say, all right, I don't have funding to solve the whole problem. The question is, what do I have the capacity or the resources for? Well, if you don't have the resources or the capacity for any part of it, then you really have no business talking about solving any problems, honestly. Because it's either you have the skills to say, okay, I don't have money, but I can write a small prototype of a solution, and then I would, or you have connections where you say, okay, I don't have money, I can't code, but I know people who can do this, who can write code or who have money. I can go to them. I will be like the orchestra coordinator. Or you have money, but if you don't have any of this, then like the question is, what puts you in a position to even imagine you can solve a problem? So it's also recognizing that we must be modest. It's not all problems that are for us to solve. Some problems are not for us if we don't have the resources or the means or the capacity to solve them. But should we have the resources or the means or the ability to solve them, it's also recognizing that we don't have to solve them all at the same time. We can start from the little we can and solve that small part. Then somebody else is more encouraged to say, wow, this guy is asking me for money, not just to go and eat the money or spend it lavishly, but there's evidence that he's really serious about this. Look at the prototype he has written, he has done. Look at what he has done so far. You must present some evidence that you are serious, right? And if that means using your money, so be it. If that means going to look for investors or your family members or crowdsourcing, and that's something you also have to learn to do, right? Learn how to use crowdsourcing. That people raise tens of thousands of dollars via crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing simply means that you come up with an idea that says, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. This is how much I need. Here is evidence that the math is correct. I'm not just trying to steal the money. And here is the plan for me to implement it. And you'll be surprised how many people respond to that. But you have to prove that you are the right guy to solve the problem, and that you have the team in place to solve the problem. And that hopefully you have done some work beforehand for people to put some credibility in what you're saying. So I'll definitely encourage you to look into crowdsourcing as a way of raising funds if you don't have funds yourself, but you really want to solve a problem.
Okay, that sounds good. So if there are no more questions, then I think we should start with our own work. Okay. So I think it was terrific to listen to you, Dr. Israel. It's wonderful to have you. I think we are indebted to you for all the wonderful wisdom and practical real life world wisdom that you have to say. And I'm sure our young participants, emerging researchers from all the LMICs who are attending and listening to you for the past 1.5 hours, they have the same feeling of gratitude, sense of gratitude and thankfulness. So I think all of you enjoyed your session. So we had a wonderful time. Let me tell you a few parting words, Dr. Israel, before we end the session. First thing is that as a part of this Global Advanced Certificate Program, we are offering them two things. Those who complete the 10 weeks program, it's a very research intensive training program. Once they complete their project, then they'll be presenting that, which will be graded by different world leading researchers will be invited. They are external panelists. And once everything is over, then people will be graded and they'll receive a certificate of completion, award of completion. And this will be called Global Advanced Certificate Program in Strategic Research Collaboration and Communication for Young Emerging Researchers in LMICs. But this is not all. They'll also receive, in the pattern of UK and Australian universities, they'll receive a statement of higher education achievement, which is a very specific kind of document wherein the learning outcomes and objectives will be clearly written, and every instructor, whoever visits and teaches them, will have their signatures written on that. So, for example, you have come this week to teach them, so your signatures will be there. So they'll be carrying a certificate all their life with your signature on that, certifying that you have taught them for 1.5 hours. So that's the way we are operating. So we have planned for 60 teachers to come besides me. So there will be 17 teachers altogether to teach them. Obviously, the tutors' name, if we can accommodate them, we'll try, but otherwise they are also the teachers. And so we have that kind of document which has been already planned. We'll be soon requesting you for your PPT, PowerPoint presentation, which you used for teaching us, and also your signature, your kind signature on that certificate program. So I hope you will oblige us with that request. And I look forward to receiving more and more support in terms of receiving great recommendation for industry partners, industry experts, who maybe we can invite them during this next 7 weeks time, and they would be hopefully they would accept our invitation and come and talk to our young participants here. And it would be great to hear industry perspective as well, because we had one industry expert in the first panel. He's a health tech entrepreneur, but besides that, we want to have No, I'm not muted, but somebody is trying to mute me. So you need to understand that somebody has some access of your MS Teams. Okay, we'll have to figure it out. Okay, so I'm not muting myself. So because I'm speaking, so how can I mute myself? So the point is that we would love to have you, and we would love to have industry partners to come and speak to us. And I hope you will help us in this process. This is just a very humble effort to train our younger next generation of learners. And I hope we'll receive more support and patronage from people like you. Those and we are completely non-funded. We are all doing it from our own pockets, all fruit of labor of our own love, and we are trying to do it. We have been successful so far in the past 3 weeks, and we are very confident that we'll be able to successfully complete this program after the next 7 weeks time. And once the graduates complete this program, they'll be very proud of themselves when they graduate with the certificate program, advanced certificate program, and they'll go back home with at least one publication in hand, which we are planning to publish in a Q1 or Q2 journal at least. And we are very confident that we'll be able to accomplish it. Hopefully they'll work harder and they'll remain inspired the way you just inspired them today with all the brilliant wisdom that you had to offer. So I hope they'll use all of that wisdom to work harder in the coming days, and they'll make ourselves proud of them and also proud of themselves, and their parents will also should feel proud of them by their engagement in this training program. And this training program is supposed to make everyone a better learner, better collaborator, and better person overall. And I hope we'll be able to achieve our humble initiative, humble objective, and by this initiative. So that's all from my side. I hand over my mic to Mr. Faisal to do the duties. Thank you. Faisal. Can you please take a photo? Can you please take a photo of Professor Agaraku while he's on? Yeah. Please take. Please take a screenshot while we are active. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now you can tell them about the attendance policy. Yeah. Means attendance. So you are sharing the link on YouTube, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Please share the link on YouTube. And Dr. Akaku, so thank you so much. We troubled you so much on Sunday. I hope it's a morning time in the US time. But it's been wonderful talking to you. Hopefully, I will personally ping you once more, and we'll have another meeting. And because the Global Consortium is just starting with its activities, we'd love to have you on our board. So I would get back in touch with you. Somebody else wants to ask a question? No, please don't ask question if you don't have anything personal to ask Dr. Agaku. Okay, so I think it's been wonderful listening to all of you and listening to Professor Agaku and Professor Lucio today. So I hope all of you enjoyed listening to both of them, and their wonderful perspectives and insightful ideas. So that's all from my side. You will be provided the attendance link. Dr. Agaku, I'll be messaging you personally on WhatsApp. That's all from my side for tonight. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your weekend. Hopefully see you soon. Thank you. Ezel, can you okay. Yeah, I think he has dropped. Yeah. So all of you, please go to your YouTube link, which has been already provided. Go to YouTube link, and the attendance link has been shared there. Please fill that. Okay. We are experiencing some technical glitch here, which we are unable to fix because none of us are trained in engineering. My father did not have the money to train me in engineering. So you please go to YouTube and get your attendance link from there and fill the forms. Okay, that's as simple as that. Thank you so much. So Faisal, please stay on board, and tutors, if any of you are here, please stay on board. Tutors, if any tutors are there, please stay. Rest, you may leave, please. There is no issue. The meeting is over. Thank you.
Good night, sir.
Who wants to ask? Dr. Malati, you want to say something? Please. You want to ask something, Dr. Malati? Except you, please leave. Everyone may leave. You will get your attendance link on the YouTube link. Okay.
Sir,
it will be
I'm
open only for
the...
15 minutes. You will the link will be only open for 15 minutes, not more than that. Okay. And don't copy and share it. Do not copy and share it to anyone.
Sir, I'm unable to open the link, sir. That's the thing I want to ask.
Which link you are unable to open, madam? Attendance link. Why? Why, Faisal? What's the issue?
Yeah, me too, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Dr. Israel is back. Dr. Israel, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure what happened, but I just lost connection.
Okay, no worries, no problem. We were wondering that maybe you lost some connection or something. No worries. So what I was saying, Dr. Israel, is that it was wonderful to host you. And what I'll do is I'll send you another message on WhatsApp, and then you will receive another email, post-processing email, and with a photo and everything, which you can share on social media, on LinkedIn and other platforms. That will give us a little bit of publicity about the work that we are doing.
Got the sir.
And
got the link, sir.
Please don't speak. Please don't speak. We are talking now. Please don't disturb. Okay, so that will help to to get a bit of publicity. Okay, and that our young humble initiative to grow, hopefully. Okay, so that's all from my side, and I look forward to the opportunity to connect with you very soon, and I also look forward to the personal opportunity to work with you. So that is my personal motivation. So that's something which I'll definitely get in touch with you. So it's wonderful